What is good, everybody, man? Hoping everybody had a good weekend, man. It was uh, to say the least, a ridiculous weekend of football across both levels, man. Starting, at 11 a.m. I know everyone watched that Auburn game. I don't know how we escaped the win. Brian Harsin finds a way to save his job, even with all the Coach Prime rumors and Hugh Freeze rumors and everything like that. But the FCS. Listen, this is ridiculous. As a voter, this is the weeks you really, really hate to be voting in. Nine FCS top 25 teams lost this past weekend, and there were a few that didn't look impressive in their wins either. And so, uh, putting together the top 25 this week and figuring out where everyone goes, what to expect from everybody was absolutely ridiculous, man. It was stressful. I got home last night from Hammond, Louisiana, about midnight, and I stayed up. I stayed up a good while looking at film, trying to figure out who I'm going to put where, and it was interesting to say the least. But first off, I want to give a shout out to everyone in Hammond, Louisiana for Southeastern Louisiana Incarnate Word this weekend. I had an amazing time, got to meet some really awesome people, and it lived up to the hype, man. To be there and witness that final, I guess you could call it a Hail Mary, even though it was going to be a Hail Mary, but the wide receiver just burnt the guy off the line. And I'm telling you, to watch some of the people who were quote unquote professionals just lose it on the sidelines, where the SID and one of the sideline announcers was, well, was jump in, and I mean, it's pretty much storming the field, and to see everything that went down in that game, it was amazing. And so shout out to everyone at SLU for the great weekend. I cannot wait. This weekend I'll be headed up to Campbell this weekend. We're covering Campbell versus North Carolina Central. Going to be they're going to inch toward the top 20, so that's going to be an extremely important matchup for North Carolina Central's run to an undefeated season. If they get past Campbell, based on what I saw this weekend, there is a amazing chance that North Carolina Central can finish this season 11-0, going into the Celebration Bowl against a potentially undefeated Jackson State as well. So this next week is going to be huge. I can't wait to bring y'all all the content from up there at Campbell. But let me get to all these comments that y'all left, man. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're not. Yeah, man, Austin P turned it up in the second half. That's going to be one of the games we're going to talk about, Sean. Middle Tennessee State beating over 25 Miami. That was a great performance win. I'll give you that one as well. Great week of FCS football. Definitely going to be like that all year. Can't wait for these rankings to come out. Listen, at the end of the show, as always, I'm going to drop my rankings. We're going to do players of the week, a short recap, get into my top 25, and then I'm taking y'all's comments and live calls all night, man. Call in number 701-779-9585. Also, if you want to become a member, no pressure, man. I made the tiers really, really cheap. Hit the link right there from Sean, man, and become a member of the channel, and definitely hit the like button. Hey, Jerome, man, appreciate you turning in, man. All is good here. Trying to catch up on some sleep from last night, man. Worst performance, South Carolina State. We're going to get into that one too. What's up? What's up? Appreciate you tuning in. South Carolina State is always what they've been. Like I tell everyone, they show up for the biggest games of the year. Last December, JSU didn't. That's all. Hugh Freeze would turn Auburn around the most. Man, what's up, Jermaine? Blue, you definitely picked the right game to attend. It was amazing. It was amazing to see that game. I'm glad it ended like it did, man, especially after dealing with all the rain delays and everything. It was great to finally go to one that ended in a thriller like that. Is Stanford a lock for the playoff/conference championship? I don't think you could, I don't think you could say they're a lock because of how I would say because of how crazy the SoCon is. It's so hard to just write in a SoCon team. You look at ETSU and the hype that they have behind them. They haven't lived up to any of that. You still have ETSU. They got to play. You still have Mercer. You still have some of those top teams. Western Carolina was a big win for them, but they still have to beat some of those other top teams in the SoCon. But they're on the right path. And I think when you see my top 25 at the end, or if you've already seen it, it's going to make sense where I have them. And I think Sanford right now is right there with Mercer, Chattanooga, and some of those top teams, is one of the favorites to go out there and win the SoCon. Um, Bobcats beat Eastern Washington with a second string QB and a fifth. And Ron, we're going to get to that. It was a huge win to say the least for Montana State. I thought UC Davis would beat Weber. I had Weber winning that one. Apparently, I was told, Brandon, that I was a little late on the Weber bandwagon. Apparently, because I had them outside the top 10, I was one of the few voters that weren't putting a lot of stock into Weaver State. I mean, they look legit. We're going to see because Brandon, I'm assuming you're a big Sky guy. You know that going through that conference is a gauntlet, and so I still have to see them put together a string of wins together. But I think really and truly they could contend for the Big Sky Championship. Colorado and Colorado State may go winless. What's up, Mr. Kincaid? What's up, Steve? Um, no, I don't think he's going to go to Georgia Tech. I know Georgia Tech did fire Collins today, so Georgia Tech, Arizona State, Nebraska are all open jobs, right? Big open jobs in college football right now. So we'll see what kind of happens. Bama State let me down. We beat ourselves. Now I feel good about that pick. I picked PV in that game, and I feel real good, Chris, about picking that one. And I'm really, really happy that PV pulled it out. But Bama State did have chances to win that game. It was not a good week for my pickle, man. I think this was my worst week yet. I think I went 6-4 or 5-5 on the website. Not pumped about that. But let's get to players of the week real quick. I hate picking two players from the same school as players of the week, man, but I had to. When you set records, you have to like they deserve to be players of the week. So Tim DeMorat, back to back Blue Bloods offensive player of the week, 503 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns, and completed over 75% of his passes in a close loss to Ohio. It says 59-52. It was really 53-52. They took back a lateral on the last play that Fordham was trying to score on. And then Fotis, the wide receiver, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, 13 catches, 320 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns for Fotis at the wide receiver spot for Fordham. In that loss, I mean, 4 receiving touchdowns as well. When you go for 13 for 320 and 4 touchdowns, there is no way I can't put you in the offensive player of the week. And Tim DeMorat was setting records with 500 yards passing and 6 passing touchdowns. The lead right now that Tim DeMorat has over the rest of FCS football for the Walter Payton Award it is ridiculous. I always said it was going to be Lindsey Scott, Tim DeMorat, Jason Shelley, and Shador Sanders. Right now, Tim DeMorat is going to lap those guys in terms of stats. Right now, Tim DeMorat is on pace to throw for over 60 touchdowns this season. And it's him and everybody else. You can play Shelley, Shador, and Lindsey Scott wherever you want in the second, third, fourth spot. Tim DeMorat is the unquestioned favorite right now for the Walter Payton Award. He has put on an absolute performance in Fotis this weekend, setting records with his 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Both of those guys had to be offensive players of the week for sure. Now, Jarvion Howard is my other offensive player of the week, Alcorn State running back. 295 yards rushing, 4 rushing touchdowns, and he averaged 12.3 yards per carry against UAPB. This was an absolute, in my opinion, this was his breakout game. I saw him in person against Stephen F. Austin breakout, but this is where he really put himself on the map this weekend for a lot of, I think, average SWAC fans and a lot of FCS watchers. It's because he came into the game leading the SWAC and rushing. Now, based on this performance, he's going to, in my opinion, he's going to be one of the top 10 rushers in FCS football this year. That's the type of longevity that I think Howard has in this offense, because we know Fred McNair is going to give him the football, and I hate it because I really like Nico Duffy, but Howard has proven that he is the number 1 running back on this Alcorn State team. And it's disappointing because Nico Duffy is extremely talented. But right now, you cannot tell me that Howard isn't the best player on that Alcorn State offense. I get it. Bowler's there too. That can be debated. But Jarvion Howard has been the most dynamic weapon on that team. And I'm really, really excited to see how he continues to evolve, because this is still only a handful of games into the season. I think he's still going to start building that chemistry with his teammates. And if they can get the quarterback play going with Allen more consistently, Alcorn State is going to be a terrifying team come later this year, man. But Tim DeMoret, Fotis, and Jarvion Howard are my three offensive players of the week. For defensive players of the week, I got Woo Governor, Northern Iowa DB this weekend. 4 total tackles, had 2 pick sixes, man. Both interceptions he took back for touchdowns. He had over 100 yards of return yards this weekend for Northern Iowa in a huge performance. And then Mike Danucci, Lehigh linebacker, 11 total tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Lehigh getting some love on the show. And then Lance Wise, Mercer defensive back, 6 tackles, a half a tackle for loss, 2 picks, and a huge pick six to really break the game open for Mercer. All 3 of these guys played outstanding football. Defensive player of the week this week was crazy. I go through and watch watch as many games as I can, go through all the stats across FCS football. Every single game that's played, I look at. And I probably had a list of about 15 guys that I was really trying to pick apart to see who got that number 3 spot. But Woo Governor, when you have 2 pick sixes with over 100 yards of total return yards, you have to win this. And Mike Danucci and Lance Wise had big weekends too. All 3 of these guys, in my opinion, deserved this Defensive Player of the Week award. He said UNHDB draft recruit. FBS plays too much into favorites. That's why I like FCS more. Man, Steve, I'll go ahead and address this. So FAMU at 500. FAMU this weekend, I thought took a big step forward in terms of where I kind of see them fitting into the SWAC race in general. The one question I have is just consistency, Steve. That's the thing that I believe that FAMU's been missing this year right now is consistency across the games. They had a great performance against UNC. They looked terrible against Jackson State. They did not look great against Albany State. And then they looked really good at stretches against Alabama A&M and really pulled that one away. I just want to see them take that week to week. And I think FAMU has a chance if they play their cards right, because we have questions about the rest of their schedule. Let's just keep it honest. Alabama State has question marks. Just got beat by PV. Southern blanked by Texas Southern last week. We have questions about them. Valley has question marks everywhere. I don't know if there's a team that you see on FAMU's schedule that you could say they don't have a chance of beating if they play their best football. And so I think FAMU is going to be just fine, man. They're sitting at 500, but over the next few weeks, they have a great opportunity, Steve, to make a case that they're still the second best team in that division. So that's where I would put right now. That's where I would say FAMU needs to be. And I agree, FAMU is starting to get into a groove on both sides of the football. Man, real quick, FBS versus FCS games this weekend. Sacramento State beating Colorado State 41-10. I don't know what you guys want me to say about this. I mean, 41-10 over an FBS school is ridiculous. For I don't care what the FBS school is, but I mean, Colorado State, not very good, but I mean, still, this was impressive. Jake Dunaway looked great this weekend. Cameron Scabito at running back looked great. The defense played opportunistic defense, held Colorado State to only 10 total first downs, less than 2.5 yards per carry. Did not let them throw the ball around the yard, and had almost 400 yards of total offense, man. Sac State is legit. I did not have them super high in my poll because they had that weird week 2 bye week for some reason. It was insane, but the few games that Sac State's been out there, beating UNI on the road, beating Colorado State 41-10, right now, Sac State looks like a legit FCS contender, and in my rankings, I definitely moved them up. I moved them up extremely high in my next rankings. Now, Ohio and Fordham was a heartbreaker, man. Fordham should have won this, man. I'm sick about this game. I wanted Fordham to win this one so bad. It would have been a huge win for the Patriot League. But if you missed this game, go to ESPN Plus, type in Fordham or Ohio football, and find the replay of this game. This game had over 1,400 total yards, only 4 punts, had 22 penalties for almost 300 yards, and both teams did amazing on third down, and it was just a back and forth offensive brawl. Fordham 28 first downs, Ohio 32. Both teams just got what they wanted at will, and it was an amazing game just to watch. And so go if you haven't checked it out. I know some people in here really aren't into Fordham football. I get it. It's the Patriot League. Go watch this game because we were watching it in the press box waiting for that Southeastern game to start. It was one of the best games of the weekend. I promise. It was one hell of a game. If Alcorn continues to play well and keep winning, how high can they get in the FCS poll? Um, so, Mr. Kincaid, it really depends on how impressive they look over these next few weeks. The problem is the only chance that Alcorn's going to get at another ranked win is going to be Jackson State, and that's the last week of the season. I think if Alcorn continues to win and they continue to win convincingly, you can possibly see them slide into the back half of the top 25. But right now, it's going to take some time. I would say, man, I would not expect them in the bottom half of the top 25 unless something unexpected happens, probably until at least October. I think that Southern game on the road is Mr. Kincaid is a must win, and that's kind of where you would get on some of these national radars in terms of being ranked. I agree, Lawrence. They were number 26 in my poll this week. I had Fordham number 26, so one spot out of my top 25. But Fordham is going to be there. Well, Middle Tennessee State, Wayne's not an FCS team, but yeah, Middle Tennessee State put it on Miami to say the least. That I'm not surprised. Listen, Mario Cristobal has to figure something out. Tyler Van Dyke looked terrible, ended up getting benched. I think I left this week with more question marks about Miami than a lot of the other top Power Five teams in the country right now. Alcorn needs to be respected. They may play Jackson back to back. I'm hoping, Coach Simmons. I'm going to be in Lorman the 19th for that game. I would love to see a rematch in Jackson the next week. What do Lamar do for PV if they win? Um, I mean, I think Lamar, if I'm not mistaken, Lamar still hasn't won a game, if I'm not mistaken, Coach Green. So I don't think it does much. Lamar is not a quality win, I would say. I think Lamar just got beat by Northwestern State, which is the team that Grambling smacked around. So I don't think Lamar is doing much for PV. PV should win that game. If PV loses to Lamar, that is a terrible loss for PV. Montana versus Montana State looking to collide. They're both balling. CSU is a legitimate bottom five FBS school. Sac State deserves to win. The Big Sky has four teams in the top 10 right now. East Tennessee over Vandy last year. Yeah, listen, South Dakota State put it on them, to say the least. Fordham's defense was the reason Fordham can't play defense. Literally allowed. Man, Fordham's defense is atrocious. I'm going to be on. It was bad, and listen, if they don't have Tim DeMorat, that team might not have a win right now. They might have one win. I think they had that Wagner game might still have been winnable, but that they're not sitting at 3-1 with top 25 votes right now if it weren't for Tim DeMorat in that offense. The Big Sky's the number one FCS conference this year. Stephen F. Austin. Okay, so some people ask me about this. I want to explain this real quick. So Stephen F. Austin beat I believe it was an IA school 98-0. The only reason that game was scheduled is because of what happened with Lamar and Incarnate Word jumping back to the Southland late. And with all the conference realignment, the WAC, since that happened so late, was not able to replace those conference games, and they did not want to have to play each other twice. And so instead of having a conference game, that was the only team Stephen F. Austin could find that had an opening in the schedule for this week, because this week was supposed to be one of their conference games against Incarnate Word of Lamar. And since they couldn't schedule that, they had to play that game. And I think they just ran the points up because they could. And I mean, they were still trying to run the clock late, but I mean, 98-0 is insane. I also owe all FAMU people an apology. Y'all look better than what I was expecting. I had y'all losing every game. Jesus, man. I don't know about that one. Miami and UT are overhyped every season. Man, what's good, Robert? Appreciate you tuning in. The beautiful thing will all be settled on the field in the playoffs. Alcorn will not be cracking the top 25 poll. Myself and Blue agreed on Colorado State issues. Man, he left the program terrible. It was bad. But I'm glad they got a new coach. We'll see. We'll see. Let's Brandon, I see your question. I'll address that when we get to that slide. Real quick. Of course, the game I was at, Southeastern Louisiana versus Incarnate Word, 41-35. And man, this game was insane. Well, hang on. Let me get to Mr. Ford here real quick. I know he's calling in. What's up, Mr. Ford? You're live.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good.
Let me turn this down. Listen, before I start with this football stuff, last night the FAMU radio broadcast people had Coach Spady on last night. It was so good to know that he's out of the hospital and that he's doing better. And we need to pray for him. Like I said before, he's a good guy, and he's having some medical issues, and hopefully everybody will send some prayers up for him. Let me say this first and foremost. I watched that Jackson State Mississippi Valley game yesterday, and I'm going to say this to the president of Jackson State and to the athletic director. Y'all need to reconsider this 1 o'clock stuff, okay? That game could have been a 50,000 game if it had been started maybe at 4, 5, even 6 o'clock. I think one of the things they need to keep in mind, Jackson State is the hottest HBCU football program in the nation. You got people from surrounding states, people from Alabama, people from Tennessee, people from Louisiana, people from southern Mississippi, even far as Texas, who would like to come to Jackson. They can't come to no game at no 1 p.m. Now, we're not going to even talk about the fact, and I'm not questioning the intelligence of the president or the athletic director. Don't you know we under global warming? What's so hard about that? You don't understand that we are under global warming. And this whole thing about what Dion said that they got to learn to get used to playing at 1 o'clock because she's going to go. Listen, come on now. Now, I know Dion can be dogmatic, okay, but somebody got to have some sense. Okay, President Hudson has a law degree. Okay, Ashby has intelligence and education. Okay, this 1 o'clock stuff, come on, man. Now, much as I love HBCU football, SWAC football, if I was in Jackson yesterday, I couldn't sit out there in that heat. I couldn't do that. So I think they need to reconsider that, okay? Now, here's the other thing about it. Let me tell you something. Here's what I'm seeing, Blue. This is me. Danzig needs help on that darn gone offensive side of the ball, even if it means going to a triple option offense. Now, he's one thing I could see yesterday is he has fortified his depth. He has brought in depth, but the offensive coordination, it's not there. Now, what I would suggest is to bring in older coaches on the offensive side, especially when it comes to line play and the passing game. But here's the other thing. Here's the thing that I would say to them. If I was Mississippi Valley, I would incorporate some triple option. Now, what you think about that, Blue? I would incorporate some triple option.
I actually had a conversation. I don't remember which caller it was last week. It was after their loss to Delta State. The two things you have too much history to drop to D2, really and truly. The SWAC doesn't want Valley to drop. And the only way to compete when you don't have the resources or you have some sort of limitation on roster management is to run an offense that's tough to prepare for, like the triple option.
Right.
Just like the service academies. They can't recruit the same way that Power 5 schools could. Power 5 schools or any other FBS school can. So the triple option evens the playing field. And look at what Georgia Tech accomplished with what they were able to do with the triple option. And then even the Citadel and Georgia Southern back in the day. I don't know if people remember. I know you will, Mr. Ford. Back in the day, the triple option from Georgia Southern used to embarrass people. No one could stop it.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
And that's what Valley needs to do.
Do you remember Irk Russell? Irk Russell was an Auburn graduate. He was, I believe, he was the defense coordinator for Vince Dooley when Vince Dooley was at the University of Georgia. He was the program. And he left after Herschel Walker won that national championship in 1981. He left the University of Georgia and went to Georgia Southern. And he's the one that came up with that ham bone offense with Tracy Ham. And I want to say they won maybe 2 or 3 national championships. But, yeah, I like some things I see at Mississippi Valley. But I want to say to Coach Dancy, you've got to go out and get some more offensive minds on your offensive side of the ball. Because, see, the thing about Coach Dancy, he's a defensive coach. Yeah, that's right, Ron. They did. Georgia Southern beat Florida. I want to say that's when Florida had Will Muschamp as the head coach. Yeah, you're right. That's right. Tracy Ham, no handball. But that's what I'm seeing with them. I don't know what the budget is. Now, here's the other thing about Mississippi Valley, and this falls on Dr. Charles McClellan. We got to have better revenue sharing. All the money cannot go to the conference office. We got to get more money into the hands of these SWAC member schools, and they got to, I've been saying all along, I want everybody in the SWAC to have a budget of at least $15 million. We can do it with revenue sharing. We got to do a better job of revenue sharing. Right now, we're sending all the money to the conference office. No, the money, the majority of that money needs to go to these conference affiliates, needs to go to these conference schools. Okay? Mississippi Valley is a prime school that I'm talking about. The conference office got to funnel money into Mississippi Valley. We can't sit around and say they own their own and pull yourself up by your own bootstrap. No, it don't work like that. Look at the NFL. Pittsburgh, small market. But they depend on revenue sharing. That's what keeps them good. Now, let me tell you this. I watch FAMU. I watched FAMU to see if they made any adjustments during that off week. They did. First thing I noticed was the offensive line. He switched one of the guards to the strong side. He's still weak at center, still kind of weak at one of them, what I call the weak side guard. But that's not his biggest problem because I thought the second half, the offense picked it up. Here's the thing that Coach Willie Simmons has to do. He's got to go and get defensive players in this next recruiting cycle. That defense is not dominant enough. Let me tell you something. Right now, if you look at that SWAC East, really it's only one good team in the SWAC East. That's Jackson State. Everybody else, the FAMU program fooled me. I thought that the FAMU program coming into the season would challenge Jackson State. And you see how wrong I was? But he's got to upgrade that that defense. The main thing is they got to go recruit defensive players who can play pass defense. That secondary is weak as Sweetwater. You hear me? That's second. Now, did you see the FAMU Alabama A&M game, Blue?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think about FAM's secondary? Because I think they're pitiful.
They have some pieces. I think they have some individual pieces that are
I don't
good.
like none of the safeties. And I really, one corner is okay, but the rest of them, That defensive line, it got better in the game last night, but they got to go get, whether it comes from that transfer portal, junior colleges, high school, they've got to go and get a bigger defensive lineman. They can't get around.
Yeah,
they cannot get around it.
Because now that Isaiah lands on scouting reports, he hasn't done anything.
Right.
Teams are taking him right out of the game.
That's what I'm saying too. I'm liking General Hunt, but to me, General Hunt don't have no help on the inside.
No, they're missing Savion.
Now, the one thing I can say, that second half is what I've been telling people all along. That Musa can hit you in space. Let me tell you something. His best throw is that deep throw, and then not only is it a consistent throw, but it's right on the money. And I still say the number one thing you got to do with Musa is you got to protect him. That's why I say for Florida A&M, they got to play with 2 tight ends. 7 blockers instead of 5, give me 7. Okay? Now, the other team I was really impressed with yesterday was Alcorn. Now, they got a running back transferred to them. He's from Mississippi. I think he was wearing zero. Was it zero?
Yeah,
He's wearing blue.
it's Jarvion Howard. He won our one of our offensive player of the weeks this week. He had like 4 touchdowns this week.
Listen, he's a pro. He's going to NFL. He's a pro.
He's huge in person. He's not very tall. When I went and covered the Alcorn State Stephen F. Austin game, he just sticks out, and he tore them up too. That big run he had, I think he went like 60 yards. He doesn't look fast in person, but he just seems to keep running away from people. I can't put my finger on it. He has that sneaky fast ability where he doesn't look like he's running fast, but he can get around you.
I feel he's NFL. I think he's NFL. And now the other thing about Alcorn, and you know, McNabb, Coach McNabb's always good at this. Cedric Thornton left him. He's not missing Cedric. Coach Thornton, because he went and got is it Coach Thomas? Who's the defense coordinator? Who's the defense coordinator?
I'm blanking on his name, but he went and got I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
He used to be the head coach at Pine Bluff. He was on the staff with Jay Hobson. That guy's doing a good job. I want to say his name is Cedric. Is it Cedric Thomas? Yeah. Is his name Cedric Thomas?
Cedric Thomas is the D coordinator.
Listen, that guy's a good man. That's a great addition, man. He knows what he's doing. Now, the only thing I wish Cedric would get a bigger kid at the defensive line positions, whether it's the defensive end, the nose guard, or the defensive tackle. I wish he had a bigger kid with speed. To me, them defensive linemen are a little too small. But if he could get a bigger kid, okay? Now, I'm going to close with this. You know, all this summer, I worried about the offensive coordination at Alabama State. This guy, Harry Williams. I talked to people at Tuskegee. I said, listen, what can you tell me about Harry Williams? Nobody would tell me nothing about him as a coach. They said he was a terrific football player. I talked to people at Morehouse. He was offensive coordinator at Morehouse. Nobody would go online. They just said he was okay. Listen, I think he's a problem. I watched the game last night with them and Prairie View, and shout out to Prairie View. I'm telling you, Prairie View, it's going to come down from right now. It's going to come down to Prairie View and Alcorn for the SWAC West. Now, one of the things I told him last summer, I said that Alcorn, Jackson State need to play twice, need to have a home and a home during the season. Everybody got upset, thought that was foolish. But let me tell you something. The way it's looking, we're going to see Jackson State go to Alcorn at the end of the regular season, and there's a great possibility we will see Alcorn and Jackson play for the SWAC. Listen, have a good night. Blue, and you're doing a great job, okay?
Appreciate you, Mr. Ford.
All right.
All right, I'm going to go to Coach Green, and then 5059, you're next. Coach Green, you're live, man.
What's up, man?
What's good?
Good, man. I watched the the PV Alabama game. Offensive coordinator did a good job. It just them turnovers, man. Them 5 turnovers, and then they had the costly fumbles. That cost them the game, man.
Hey, I give PV a lot
Alabama
of credit
State could have had it.
Their defense is so stingy. They're fast. And I don't think they get enough credit for just how, they're always in the right spot, in my opinion. Watching the few games I've watched of them, man, that defense is so well coached that it's hard to beat. It's really hard to score on.
Talking about PVN.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, though. Their defense is stingy because, look, they kept the team that was scoring 50 from scoring 50.
Yeah, Incarnate Word. Incarnate Word still scored more on Southeastern last night. They scored 35.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then like I was trying to tell people, I said the game offensively, their game changed when their quarterback got knocked out the game early in the first half. So when Conley got knocked out, they had to go with C.J. Dumas, who's a freshman, and he did his best, but it's like they different under Conley. They're able to run more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be your prototypical where, he's going to go out there and throw for 300 or whatever. But if he can just avoid turnovers and run the offense like he knows how to do it, he doesn't lose you the game. And that's sometimes more important than being able to try to win it all the time. And I got to give PV credit, man. I did not believe in them coming into this year. I really didn't. I counted them completely out. And right now, it's them and Alcorn at the top of the SWAC East or West. My bad.
Yeah. Well, I really didn't. I didn't do that because a lot of them players that never left are still there, even though they lost Dumas. They had they had good nucleus that was returning defensively. We just didn't know what their offense was going to be, but we knew they had the running backs. We didn't know who the quarterback going to be, but now we know it's Conley. But shoot, they all them guys that was with that was at PV on the defensive side all returned to PV once Bubba got the job. They all returned. So ain't nothing really changed defensively other than the defensive coordinator spot. The defensive coordinator is at Southern.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, man. I cannot wait for them to play Alcorn and or Southern. I'm ready for that. I'm ready to see those matchups because they've already beat Texas Southern, so they got the 2-game lead on them. I'm really interested to see how they match up against Alcorn and Southern. Do you know if you guys go up there or do they got to come to Baton Rouge?
Southern?
Yeah, when they play Southern.
We got to go to PV because Southern came to us. Because you remember, PV blasted Southern at Southern, and that's when
that's
right.
I remember that now. I try to forget that.
Yeah, but also, man, Alcorn running back. God, when I was watching that game,
he's a dog, man. Listen, I take my answer back from the round table. Listen, I get it. Dallas Daniels is doing his thing. They got to give that kid the newcomer of the year. They do, in my opinion.
Yeah, because the commentator started calling. Hey, I was watching this kid run. I literally watched him through a kid that grabbed him by the arm, like tossed him over the other side of his shoulder, and kept on running. Like he literally moved him, and then the commentator started calling him the Purple Rhino. And I was like, yeah, he's running like a rhino for real.
I hope he sticks with that. I'm hoping he makes that his nickname, the Purple Rhino. I don't think anyone, I don't remember any running back being called the Rhino, but that's wild.
Well, he one of them old school SWAC commentators. I mean, not SWAC, but HBCU commentators. And, he came from that time when they used to hand out nicknames to different people. That's why a lot of these HBCU people had nicknames. So I guess he reached up into his old bag and all of a sudden I just start hearing Purple Rhino.
On this show, we're gonna make it live. I'll get in touch with Scotty, make sure he keeps it going. We're gonna keep this going, man. The Purple Rhino now. No more Jarvion Howard. He's just the Purple Rhino.
Man, that kid. And now UAPB is better than what people think too.
I just don't know where to put them, man, because I still think they're definitely behind Alcorn State because they just lost. I'm still not putting them above Texas Southern. I'm still not putting them above Southern. I'm not putting them above Grambling right now. I just don't know who you put them over. I mean, I guess technically, maybe depending on the way Grambling responds, that could be a game that they could win. But I just don't know how they finish anywhere above 5th in the division.
They just gonna have to. They don't have to win this to prove us wrong. That's the thing. They just gonna have to win out. That's the only thing they could do. Win to make us think about it because they got the talent. Because the running back is legit. He's legit, and they got a nice wide receiver. So it's gonna be interesting.
They got some talent. They just got to put the whole team together, man. But I appreciate you, Coach Green. I'm going to take this last caller so I can get through some of these games. I appreciate you calling in, though.
Oh, no problem.
5059, you're live.
Hey, Blue, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear, man.
Hey, wanted to just kind of touch base on one. I'm excited when next week, week after next, when Jackson State goes to Alabama State. Love that Alabama State Stadium. That should be a great venue for that game. But Tim DeMorat, they're really playing flag football up there. He's hit like 1,800 yards.
Yeah. I mean, he's on pace to throw for over 60 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, he's on a pace to hit 5,000. Now, it seems as though Shedeur has jumped into second place with like 1481. He overtook Lindsey Scott. I think Lindsey Scott is maybe about 50 yards behind him now.
Let's see. I haven't looked. So the NCAA website hasn't updated yet, but it's going to be close because Shedeur was at
he's overtaken Lindsey Scott. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying because Lindsey Scott's somewhere around 1,300 because I believe. Oh, hang on, let me double check. I believe he threw for 300 last night. Yeah, he threw for 333.
Right, and Shedeur is at like 1,480 something.
Okay, yeah. So now I think Shedeur is second right now. They should update it tomorrow. Usually, it takes about a few days for them to update the offensive, and then 2 days to update the defensive. That's why on my website, I usually don't drop the statistical leaders until Thursday or Friday because they do the FBS stats, then they get to the FCS stats. So I just push it back later in the week. That way I make sure everything's as accurate as possible.
It seems like there's almost no way for Shedeur to catch Tim. It just seems like each game he continues to throw at 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's at 22 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's different, man. I mean, and this isn't surprising. I mean, he came in. I know Sam Herder did the QB rankings coming into the season, and he had Tim DeMorat at 3rd, and Shedeur was at 4th. I mean, he's not a new name. I mean, Tim DeMorat's been around the FCS landscape. It's just he's taken a huge step forward. They got a lot of great wide receivers, and so far, no one's been able to stop that offense. And it's not like they haven't played competition. They got a win over a CAA team, and I believe it was UAlbany. And then he just threw for 6 touchdowns and 500 yards on an FBS school, and almost led them to the upset and put up 52 points.
Oh yeah, they're burning it up. They're burning it up. I saw the head coach. I can't think of the head coach for Fordham's name right now, but he was in the weeds kind of explaining their air raid / West Coast run shoot offense that they run there. I mean, I was sitting there like, whoa, dude, you're going way too far in the weeds on this, but it was an excellent presentation. Hey, here's a surprise. I wasn't tracking this. The quarterback from Howard, Quincy Williams,
yeah,
he's surprisingly like in 4th or 5th place as far as yardage.
He's had an extra game. You got to remember he played week 0, and Howard hasn't had their bye week yet. As soon as they have the bye week, everyone's going to catch them.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that was my main thing, Blue. I just kind of called in talking about the quarterback thing. Is there, when you look at the comparison between Shedeur and Tim DeMorat, I don't know if he's able to catch him statistically. Do you see him being able to, in the race for the Walter Payton Award, do you see it as a close race, or you see it as a race that Tim DeMorat is his race to lose, or how do you see it right now?
It's his race to lose. I mean, because when you look at the Walter Payton, it's mainly a statistical award. Let's just keep it what it is. You've got to have great statistics. The problem is, the next, I would say, especially for the Walter Payton, especially when you're talking about quarterbacks, is performance in big games. The problem is neither of those teams are going to have many big games. I think Fordham will play Holy Cross, which is a top 10 game. So if Tim DeMorat goes out there and lights up Holy Cross, he's going to have an edge over Shedeur because Shedeur's not going to play any ranked teams until possibly the Celebration Bowl, and then it's too late because the voting will, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the voting's over by the Celebration Bowl. So Shedeur's not going to have a chance to have that performance in a huge game because Campbell did not live up to the hype. And then FAMU has not lived up to the hype. So that one doesn't even look great in the eyes of voters. And so that's the concern with Shador and Tim DeMoret. And this is where someone like a Lindsey Scott and Jason Shelley becomes real interesting, because what happens if Lindsey Scott goes out there in a big rank matchup and he throws for 500-600 yards and gets back statistically in the race, or Jason Shelley does it against one of those top MVFC teams. That's where the race gets tricky. But I think it's Tim DeMoret by a large margin right now. Shador, Lindsey Scott, Jason Shelley are all in, that 2 through 3, 4 range. Parker McKinney's an interesting option at 5, but right now, man, if Tim DeMoret, as long as he stays healthy, and now he's set such a ridiculous pace, if he can just throw for 250, 300 a game, he wins.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the pace that Shador is on, and he's on a pace for about 38 to 4,400 yards, something like that, and right at, I think it was like maybe 38, 39 touchdowns.
Yeah. And the other thing is, and I think someone mentioned this in the chat, what also hurts Shador, because Fordham doesn't have a defense. So Tim DeMoret is going to have to throw for 400 to 600 yards for them to have a chance to win a lot of their games. Shador, on the other hand, is not. And so you're going to, I think, when you look at their schedule coming up, there's going to be a lot more games where Jackson State is up and Shador might not play the whole fourth quarter, or they're running the football with Savion, or something like that happens where Fordham does not have that luxury. Fordham is going to have to average 40, 50 points a game to have a chance to win a lot of their games.
Right. I think every game they've had like 40 or 50 points, and it's like 48 to 44.
Yeah, I mean, they gave up 30 to Wagner, if I'm not mistaken. That's tough. Wagner's terrible on offense.
Well, that was the reason I was calling in. I was just kind of seeing where the measuring stick is right now. I'm glad that Shador has made his way statistically to second place. But yeah, I was looking at it thinking, man, I don't think he's going to overcome Tim. He's fighting for second place.
And that's fine. I want to put this in perspective for people too. Shador is only a sophomore. You got to remember, this is the
right.
first.
The rest of these guys are all seniors, I think.
Yeah. Lindsey Scott's a grad transfer. Jason Shelley's a senior. And I believe Tim DeMoret's a senior. So he's going up against seniors. They're going to win it. And guess what? Next year coming in, Shador coming, unless there's some, like a Quinn Ewers or someone like that transfers down, which isn't going to happen. Shador is going to be the unanimous number 1 quarterback in FCS football next year. And he's going to be the favorite for the Walter Payton. Jackson State's going to be a little bit better. And next year is going to be Shador's opportunity to go win the Walter Payton Award. If he finishes second as a freshman after winning the Jerry Rice Award, he's taken the Cameron Ward approach. Because if you remember, Cameron Ward almost had 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns last year, had some rushing ability. And Cameron Ward finished, I believe, 4th in the voting after winning the Jerry Rice Award. In my opinion, Shador's taking that route. And if Cameron Ward would have stayed, Cameron Ward would have probably been easily a runaway selection for the Walter Payton this year, because if he was in this Incarnate Word offense, it would have been no question. I mean, you already see what he's doing with Washington State. So I think Shador's taking that type of route where next year he'll be the favorite. But right now, I do agree with you. He's probably racing for second place right now in the Walter Payton.
Yeah, and I think he's leading in completion percentage, but Tim DeMoret, his completion percentage is like 75%. This dude is like a video game.
Yeah, man.
But hey, that's all, Blue. I just wanted to call in, kind of check in with you on the quarterback race. So I'll continue to watch that. Hey, have a good one and have a great show.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, man. Hey, I appreciate y'all's calls, man. We try to get the call lines a little bit more active this season. But listen, let me run through these games real quick, because I want to spend a lot of the show getting to y'all's comments and things like that. But man, had a blast. If you haven't yet, I know I don't know how many people saw it. I did post highlights. I got to be on the sidelines this weekend. I made a whole highlight tape, man. I upgraded my camera. I'm also going to have a photo gallery of this game dropping on the website probably tomorrow. Before the show, I was editing pictures. I'm trying to get used to that. So check out the photo gallery, and that will be a recurring theme throughout the season for the games I cover. But this game was insane, man. First off, I do want to say I really do hope Cephas Johnson is okay. The starting quarterback for Southeastern Louisiana went out with injury early in the game, so Eli Sawyer is a backup quarterback and came in and threw for 250 and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner to on that quote unquote Hail Mary. If you haven't seen it, listen, this was insane to watch. And I just want to say this wasn't even a normal Hail Mary attempt. So what happened is they lined up 5 seconds left. Eli backs up and GJ Kinney goes to call timeout and the ref doesn't hear him. And GJ Kinney, the head coach of Incarnate Word, tries to call timeout. And look, the corner looks to the sideline while he's in press man coverage and they snap it and he got burnt. And the corner stood no chance, and he is wide open going down the sidelines, and it was not even fair. It really wasn't. It was the just the reaction and everything. I'm gonna try to pull up the video real quick for you guys, man, so y'all can see just the insanity that ensued here. But man, listen, this is the video of the final play. Not open. And the sidelines went to vote. It was crazy. It was a great play, and even every day in practice. And of course, they had the dog pile and everything like that. But it was an amazing game, and I was happy I was there. But the story of this game was just Incarnate Word making dumb decisions. They were in the red zone with the chance to win the game, and Lindsey Scott throws a boneheaded interception, and it pretty much cost him the game. That ended up being the difference in the game. Lindsey Scott was great the rest of the game. 333, 3 touchdowns, had that one bad pick, had another rushing touchdown. But I do want to give Southeastern credit. They have completely shifted their offense based on the talent that they have. With Cole Kelly, they would throw the ball 60 times a game. Now that they don't have Cole Kelly back there, Carlos Washington has become a huge part of this offense on the ground. Over 120 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, over 5 yards per carry was the difference because they were able to establish the rushing game. And SLU rushed for over 200 yards as a team, and CJ Turner was unstoppable at the wide receiver position. But UIW has a great front seven. I do want to say that they were in the backfield consistently, racked up over 5 sacks. It just came down to that one play, and it came down to the execution in crucial moments, which was one of them was a pick, and the other one was a bad call where your coach tried to call timeout, and it just didn't happen. Now, for Austin Peay, Eastern Kentucky, I was shocked about this. I thought Eastern Kentucky had this one in the bag, and Austin Peay. Everyone, we've talked about Mike DeLelio on the quarterback rankings week in and week out. Austin Peay's ability to shift their game plan based on how the game is going is something that I have to give first-year head coach Scotty Walden, or not first-year head coach, but newer head coach Scotty Walden, huge credit for. They rushed for 320 yards. And they were a pass-first offense coming into the game with Dre McCray, Trey Goodman. Mike DeLelio rushed for 181 and 3 touchdowns and averaged over 12 yards per carry. CJ Evans, 75 yards rushing. Javon Jackson, 50 yards rushing. They just consistently ran it right down Eastern Kentucky's throat, and there was nothing they could do about it. Corey Chapman for Austin Peay, 2 tackles for loss, 13 total tackles. They just went out there and they put their foot on the pedal, and Austin Peay really and truly was impressive this weekend. 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Mike DeLelio, all 3 of those touchdowns. And so Austin Peay made a huge jump in my rankings. and we're going to get to those in just a second. Delaware, I called this one. I ain't going to spend a lot of time on this. I told you guys, man, I thought Hampton's 3-0 was very suspect, especially that Norfolk State win. I don't put a lot of credit into that, man. Norfolk State has been terrible this year. 8 total first downs for Hampton. They got held to 62 yards rushing, less than 2 yards per carry, 9 for 20 with 2 interceptions as a team passing, less than 100 yards passing, and only 156 yards of total offense, while they surrendered 448 yards of total offense. Nolan Henderson, spectacular again, 296 and 5 touchdowns. And the defense, man, and listen, first I want to give Thyrick Pitts, the wide receiver, 7 catches for 3 touchdowns. And the defense, man, Liam Trainer, Johnny Buchanan, those linebackers are all over the field for Delaware. And I just don't think Hampton realistically had a shot. I know a lot of people were giving them a lot of praise coming in, but they were outmatched this weekend against Delaware, and they really got shown what CAA play is going to be like. They're going to have to find a quarterback and some sort of offensive consistency if they want to compete in the CAA moving forward. Elon pulls off the big upset over William and Mary. This one was shocking too. Matthew McKay has really brought some stability into the quarterback spot. He was a transfer from Montana State last year, 207 and a touchdown. And Jalen Hampton, 3 rushing touchdowns, 145 total yards rushing, over 5.5 yards per carry. He was spectacular. They were able to hold Bronson Yoder to no touchdowns, only 67 yards total on the ground. Darius Williams for William and Mary had a great game, but it came down to Elon's defense just being able to make plays, and also their ability to win at the end of the game. And this is the same thing I talked about with Austin Peay. You have to win the fourth quarter. 19-0 was the score difference in the fourth quarter for Elon as they overcame an 18-point deficit at halftime. And that is the sign of a well-coached team, is when you can make the adjustments and you can go out there late in the game and win a tough in-conference matchup, man. Now, for 4 games, I know a lot of people wanted to talk about South Dakota State's big win over Missouri State, Montana State escaping Eastern Washington, Jackson State's demolishment of Valley in after the first drive, and then A&T coming in there and smacking around South Carolina State. Let me get to y'all's comments real quick. When Montana State and SDSU get stuff, we'll have something to say about that too. Give us some play by play. I got you, man. I'll bring some play by play in there. If Cameron Ward was in the FCS, he'd be 1 or 2. Had my money on North Carolina A&T, so I'm feeling good. I expected Delaware State to do better. The Grizz have to play the Cats and Bowman. I called the Austin Peay win. There's something about this team. I don't know what Scotty Walden is doing down there. Man, he has this team playing really, really hard, man. And I love it. What do you think of the sweet call when A&M got the safety on FAMU? I mean, I think they were just trying to have the surprise them almost sonic boom, and I just don't think it worked out. They didn't block it well enough, and I think when you're having offensive line issues, I don't think that was the right call. But it's hindsight's always 2020, right? Coach Prime really done broke that man's mind. If Manor doesn't win any SWAC games, he has to go like yesterday. I don't think it's going to matter where the Grizz play. That team is too deep. FAMU looked worse than JSU most of the first half, and then once they started playing decent, we saw that A&M was not going to be what a lot of people thought. EKU had what happened to Odoms? We trust. Listen, that's gone now. That is gone now. I think a lot of people are off that fire Odoms, get them out of here. Hughes, I don't know if Hughes on the hot seat year 1. I don't think you can put a coach on the hot seat year 1. I mean, possibly if they finish last in the division, maybe Sonic Boom, but right now I don't think you can put Hugh on the hot seat. Is North Carolina A&T gonna buy out? Man, if you're North Carolina A&T, you don't want Maynard. If North Carolina A&T goes out there and has Connell Maynard, I don't know what they're thinking. They are going to get run through in the CAA. I don't think he deserves a job right now sitting where Alabama A&M is. Not at North Carolina A&T. I like Cam Ruffin from Austin Peay. Yeah, I mean, he's a dog. He is a dog. Neither Manor or Simmons about to get the boot. Happy that A&T is back to be committed to the run. Defense only gave up 12 yards rushing. Yeah, I will be at the A&M Jackson State game in Mobile. I'll be in attendance in that one for sure. Simmons outsmarted himself on that play, not Alabama A&M. I knew that play was dead as soon as the ball was snapped. Listen, sometimes coaches overthink things. We'll put it like that. But I'll start from the bottom up on this one. It's nice to finally see A&T how A&T was supposed to play coming into the season. I'll just put it like that. This is what A&T was supposed to look like. You had Tootin at running back, and you have some depths behind them and Graves and everything. Run the football. Stop putting it in your quarterback's hands in uncomfortable situations and trying to force him to be something they're not. Run the football. And Tootin had 142 touchdowns, averaged 11.7 yards per carry against an extremely talented South Carolina State front seven. Jalen Fowler did not turn the football over. Finally, 8 for 14, 121 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, does he win the job now finally? I mean, are we done with the Zachary Yeager experiment? That's the question moving forward on that one. And for the wide receiver spot, listen, Shaq Davis is who we thought he was. 6 receptions, 127 and a touchdown. But on defense, listen, Tyquan King for A&T looks legit. Joseph Stuckey played in the backfield all night long. I think he had 3 tackles for loss. And Devin Harrell for A&T had a huge game, 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. But the defensive player of the game had to be BJ Davis. He was everywhere for South Carolina State, 17 total tackles. And I think he was the guy that I looked at that had a very, very good game. But I was really, really disappointed that they weren't able to get to the quarterback enough. 0 sacks for South Carolina State is the most telling stat of this game for me. How did you not get to the quarterback? Everybody's had success of getting to the quarterback against A&T, at least trying to get pressure. And South Carolina State's too good on the front four not to get the pressure to not get any pressure against A&T's offensive line. That was disappointing. And the story of this game too, I get that they, got behind and everything, but any game where Corey Fields has to throw the ball 50 times is not a game you're going to win. Listen, I get it. He threw for 4 touchdowns, 316 through the air, but the 2 interceptions, was sacked twice, and the lack of a rushing game. They had 12 total rushing yards and averaged 0.5 yards per carry, 22 attempts for 12 yards for South Carolina State, and Corey Fields had to throw the ball 50 times. That is a recipe for disaster if you're South Carolina State. You cannot win a football game if Corey Fields is put in the air that much and you don't have a run game. It's just it's never going to be successful. And right now you're looking at South Carolina State. You got a big win over Bethune-Cookman. Great. Are we I want the chat to respond to this. Are we 100% sure South Carolina State is going to be able to hang with North Carolina Central this year? Really and truly. I mean, that's a legit question, because for me right now, I think Central, if that game was this weekend, I would pick Central to win by minimum 10 points. And it's not even close. I think Davis Richards would give that defense fits based on how they played this weekend, and Central is way too balanced and would give South Carolina State a lot of issues. And man, they would just load the box and say, Corey Fields, you better be able to air it out. And I don't think he'd be able to. They have a secondary with some absolute ball hawks in the back end. If I'm looking matchup for matchup right now, North Carolina Central is a significantly better team than South Carolina State right this second. And I'm not 100% positive that Morgan won't compete with South Carolina State when that game comes around. And this game, to me, created a whole lot of question marks for South Carolina State. And this, to me, was a must-win for A&T. And they went out there and finally committed to running the football, and the defense finally showed up like I talked about in the preseason that I thought they had the ability to do. Now, if Sam Washington and A&T can use the momentum from this win and spark a run through the Big South, that's what's going to have to happen, I think, to save Sam Washington's job. You cannot allow Campbell, Bryant, or one of these other Big South teams to win that conference. this is A&T's conference to lose right now. And so they got to go out there and win some conference games. But Jackson State and Valley, I got to watch this game because it was earlier because my game didn't kick off till 6. I mean, of course, the story of the game: 51 passing attempts for Shedeur Sanders, 438, 4 touchdowns, had a pick. Threw his first pick of the season, was only sacked once. But man, Santee Marshall making this an interesting running back conversation. 118 on 6 carries, averaged almost 20 yards per carry. Savion did his thing, 51 yards and a touchdown, averaged over 5 yards per carry. But the story of the game was that Valley actually had some success running the football. Valley ran for 181, over 5 yards per carry, but the quarterback play just wasn't there. Outside of the one big touchdown Jamari Jones threw, the quarterbacks combined to be 3 for 14, 36 yards, and an interception outside of that one touchdown. They just didn't have that. They don't have any consistency at quarterback. And that's a huge problem for Valley, man. Listen, Ronnie Thomas did his thing. He was getting in the backfield, creating some pressure, had a sack and a tackle for loss. They had some horrible roughing the passer calls on Valley. It was ridiculous. Valley sneezed too hard from the sideline and they threw a flag just because it might have scared Shedeur. It was ridiculous. I get it. You got to protect the quarterback, but man, we got to the quarterbacks are wearing the exact same pads and helmets as everybody else, man. Like it's getting a little ridiculous with these quarterback calls while Jamari Jones is getting rocked outside the pocket. But man, Dallas Daniels, legit 10 receptions, 142 yards. And I told you guys, I thought he was going to be the leading receiver. And 2, I really did think he could make a run at 1,000 yards receiving this year. And I personally am going to be really interested to see what his NFL scouting report says. So we'll see on that, man. Listen, what's his name? Cam played well, 7 total tackles. Niles and Devontae played in the backfield. But other than that, man, I think this game went how everyone expected. I still thought Jackson didn't play their best game, to say the least. But hey, I mean, they beat Valley like they were supposed to. They get a bye week now, and we'll see. We'll see what happens moving forward. They get a nice bye week because I know they're probably excited to heal up on some injuries, but we'll see how Jackson State looks later in the season. Let's see. Tried to tell them that wasn't going to work anymore. HBCU football has improved across the board talent wise. Not impressed by 49-7. Appreciate you, man. JSU dropped to this may be the most underwhelming 40-point win I've ever seen. Cat stopped playing defense in the 4th quarter, and I'll agree with that. They did seem to kind of let up. I would love to see JSU play Montana. If Shedeur Sanders can put up those same numbers, and the man deserves Peyton. I like that. Valley speared the linebacker from JSU, and they called nothing. They got what they deserved, I guess. I think Alcorn might have success running against JSU if they can pass it all. It's going to come down to Allen's efficiency. If Allen can't open up some of the run lanes and prevent Jackson from loading the box, I don't. That's going to be tough. But if they were able to have a little bit of success passing and open up that box, I do think they can run the football. Facts with these SWAC refs, awesome stuff. The calls are ridiculous, man. And this is for all the games. There's been some horrible calls across all these games, and it's just, man, it's insane. It's insane. But real quick, man, before we get to the top 25, Montana State this weekend with a backup quarterback. Tommy Malo goes down. They're already missing their top 3 running backs. They have a backup quarterback and a fifth and 6th string running back go out here and beat Eastern Washington on the road. Sean Chambers, 1 passing touchdown, but rushed for 160 and 2 touchdowns, over 5 yards per carry. Elijah Elliott, 156 and a touchdown, over 8 yards per carry. They were just able to run the football. In Eastern Washington, they went for 148 and 2 touchdowns on the ground, but Montana State controlled the pace of this game. 355 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, and as a team averaged almost 6 yards per carry. Willie Patterson has really emerged as the number 1 wide receiver for Montana State. The defense is what it is. They got a bunch of guys who fly around and can make tackles. Gunnar Talkington had a solid game for EWU, 201 and 3 touchdowns. But it just came down to controlling the clock, And Montana State made enough plays to win this game on the road, and this was a big win for them. I had a lot of questions about them coming into this game, and they answered a lot of them, especially with the health of their team. They were able to play well on third down, get EWU off the field, and they controlled the ball for almost 40 minutes of this game and went down there and got in the red zone 7 times, converting on 5 of those. Montana State looks like the real deal. This was a big road win for them because I thought um, I personally thought that Eastern Washington was the favorite going into this one due to the injuries. But man, Montana State proved me wrong, and I got to give a lot of credit to that staff to having the players ready and that next man up mentality that Montana State is exhibiting right now. And when they get healthy, this team could be an extremely, extremely interesting team to watch late November, early December in those FCS playoffs. Now, the final game before we get to the rankings, South Dakota State, as I expected, gets past Missouri State, and the keys to the game, like I talked about on Coach's Corner, which is coming out Tuesday, and I talked about last week on the FCS preview. I thought the front 7 of South Dakota State was going to make all the difference. Adam Bach played well, Jared DePriest, Reese Winkleman, all those front guys on that front 4 and that linebacking core made plays for South Dakota State and got after Jason Shelley. 4 total sacks. They forced 2 big interceptions, held Shelley under 200 yards passing, made sure he did not run much. He only had 10 yards rushing, but I got to give a big shout out to Mark Gronikowski. He played an amazing game. There was a lot of question marks. They said there was a lot of talk about, does he look as comfortable as he did in the spring after his injury? He came out 22 of 29, 319 and 4 touchdowns this weekend. Isaiah Davis looked great again, 83 yards rushing. They were just able to be consistent. Gronikowski kept the ball safe. And you can't say the same for Missouri State, man, but a huge win for South Dakota State. And in terms of that, let's get to the rankings. I know that's what a lot of people are waiting on. My FCS Top 25, after a crazy and insane week 4, listen, North Dakota State sticks at number 1. South Dakota State jumps to number 2 over Montana, who slides into 3. Montana State at 4. Sac State jumps to number 5. The reason they jump up, if you beat a team, an FBS team, 41-10, you're a top 5 team in the FCS. So Sac State at 5, Delaware at 6, Jackson State moves to 7, Weber to 8, Holy Cross to 9. I did not drop Missouri State out of the top 10. When you look at how they competed with South Dakota State and Arkansas, along with beating a Southern Illinois team that looks like an amazing win right now, I personally think Missouri State's still a top 10 team. And if they played any of the teams from 11 down, I think they win in a head-to-head match. So I kept Missouri State at 10, Chattanooga at 11, Mercer jumps to 12, Austin Peay, after a huge win over Eastern Kentucky, jumps to 13, UT Martin to 14, UIW falls all the way from 4 to 15, NCCU slides in at 16, Sanford at 17, SLU jumps all the way from unranked to 18th, Richmond at 19, SCMO at 20, Southern Illinois, a newcomer, back into my top 25, jumps to 21 after a huge ranked win over North Dakota. Furman, Elon, William & Mary, and Eastern Kentucky round out my top 25. Fordham, just on the outside looking in, and Idaho is another team I have my eye on right now. In terms of my top 25. So that's what I submitted today. It's already in to Craig Haley and those guys over at FCS Stats Perform, and I've already submitted it for the FCS Fan Nation broadcast poll as well. But man, I'll let y'all comment y'all's thoughts and anything like that. Also, opening back up the call lines, taking any comments, calls for the next probably 25-30 minutes, man. Got a little bit of time for you guys. Call the number 701-779-9585. Let's see. May as well toss them. Oh, my Lord, man. Get sideways with my Tigers. I got my money on FAMU in 2 weeks. Graham might not win another game this year other than A&M. So it's I got to watch a replay of the Grambling game. I didn't hear why. Does anyone know why Grambling didn't wear the G this weekend? It was like a throwback thing where they did where they didn't wear logos or something. Was it a throwback jersey thing or what? Because I saw they didn't wear the G, but I didn't hear any explanation why. If not, tomorrow in the SWAC press conference, I'm sure someone's going to ask about that. But I thought that was weird that they didn't have the G on their helmet, especially with how iconic that is in terms of associating their brand. Austin Peay's undefeated at the FCS level, man. They're 4-1 or 4-1, I think. They had a loss to Western Kentucky in week 0 T. Let's see, Blue. Do you think the other FCS? Based on what I've seen, yes, I know there's a handful of voters that are going to have Jackson State anywhere from about 7 to about 12. Brandon is where is at least what I was from what I've seen of people who published their rankings. Sam Herder will post his in the morning, but I think it's going to be anywhere from 7 to about 11 or 12. Brandon, the problem is, and I talked about this on Twitter today. Hang on real quick. The G stands for got whooped again. They had to earn that G. Oh, okay. Oh, so Hugh took it. That's brutal. Imagine going to Grambling to play for the G and you lose it. That's wild. But I talked about this, Brandon. Someone asked me on Twitter about a glass ceiling, or the interesting conversation about what's Jackson State's actual potential in the like grand scheme of things in terms of voting. And the problem that Jackson State's going to run into is even if they keep winning, so like next week with their bye week, if someone has a big ranked win or an FBS upset or something like that that's right behind them, they're probably going to jump Jackson State, because when you look at these teams right now, the margin is really, really thin when you get in the top 10. There's a lot of room to move when you're back in the 16 to 25 range. Really, anywhere from 15 to 25, you have a lot of room to move week to week. But when you get in the top 10, the margin is so thin, because you week in and week out you have to make the distinction of, okay, so if Montana beats a ranked team, South Dakota State beats a ranked team, they have some sort of common opponent. Like, I mean, you have to go down the whole list of these teams' resumes. And the problem with Jackson State is by the end of the year, they are going to be outside of, depending on what Holy Cross and Fordham do, because those two teams could be ranked when they play. Outside of Holy Cross and Fordham, Jackson State will be the only team in the top 25 come December that did not play a ranked team. And that speaks volumes about the schedule. It's just, I know some fans will say they don't care about the rankings. I know some fans say it does matter in terms of optics and perception. But in the top 10, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State, Sac State, Delaware, Weber, Missouri State, they're going to play 3-4 ranked teams this year. And that's going to hurt JSU come in the next few weeks. So that's going to be a major issue. That's going to be an issue come later in the week. So I'm just going to warn y'all, do not be surprised if even come late October, Jackson State's still sitting at 9-0. And even though they're in my poll at 7, do not be surprised if they are stuck around the 9 to 12 spot and they just rotate from those 4 spots all throughout the year. Because there's going to be teams that hop up in the top 10. There's going to be teams that jump them. And then there's going to be teams that fall out of the top 10 and they'll move back up a handful. But I think I guess to answer the question I was asked, the glass ceiling for Jackson State is probably 7. Excuse me. 0 chance of a top 5 ranking. Even if they go 11-0, I would be very, very shocked if Jackson State hits the top 5. So that's going to be the glass ceiling effect. And I got asked again. I just want to clarify, because I keep getting asked, and I don't know how clear I can make it. There's so many people calling for Jackson State to opt out of the Celebration Bowl and go play the playoffs. Please just hit the timeout and let's look at this analytically. 1, financially, it doesn't make sense. 2, it's not just opting out of the Celebration Bowl. because of this, the way the SWAC schedule lays out with the Bayou Classic and Turkey Day Classic, the SWAC championship is the second week of the playoffs. So if Jackson State really wanted to actually play in the playoffs, they would have to opt out of the SWAC championship, which one is not allowed. And two, even if it was, the SWAC would never let that happen. It'd be like Alabama opting out of the SEC championship. Zero chance of that happening. So listen, people, just pump the brakes. Eventually, Jackson State will schedule someone out of conference and this conversation can be over, but it's not happening. So I know, and because it happened on my channel, my page on Twitter, some people kept bringing it up, and I know how this works. Someone's going to run to another platform and say Blue said that we should play in the playoffs when I did not. So I wanted to put that out there for everyone and make it very clear it's not happening, and that is exactly why that Jackson State or any SWAC team that wins their division cannot play in the playoffs. It's because the SWAC championship is the weekend of the second round. So I just wanted to make that I want to make that as clear as possible, please. But call the number 701-779-9585. They don't want that. You're basically throwing money away. I agree. You're not doing the playoffs. Yeah, Blue, unless everyone ever above is upset multiple times. Let's see. I can't see JSU making the top 5 without playing outside competition in the SWAC. They need to level up the competition, plain and simple. Jackson State need Prairie View, Florida A&M, and North Carolina Central to win out. Yeah, they. I don't know if the Central one's as important, Lawrence, because it'll be after the. I mean, I guess for the final poll that would be good, but other than that, I don't know if Central's as important as the other ones. They need Alcorn to win out too, outside of the one game with them. 7166, you're live.
Hey, what's going on, Blue?
What's good, man?
Not much. Hey, I just ask you a quick question, man, because I know you used to play the offensive line, so what I mean. I know you love them offensive line questions. So, all right, my question is this, right? With JSU's O-line, right? Like, I think as a unit they improve, but it seems they have so many penalties. You know what I mean? And I've always been under the belief that penalties is a reflection of coaching. You know what I mean? And I know, like last year, a lot of people wanted a new O-line coach, whatnot, so on and so forth. So would you say that the reason is the O-line coach, or or the players just need to do better? I just want your take on that, and I'll get off the line.
That's a good question. So, I would have to say no. It's not the O-line coach always. What the trade-off is for Jackson State right now, from what I've seen, is one, they're pretty much improved in pass blocking. I still think they have some deficiencies, but they're a lot better than they were last year. The offensive line, though, in terms of run blocking, is so much more disciplined and more physical and more aggressive. And that mindset honestly does lead to more penalties. Last year, they might not have got a lot of penalties because they weren't blocking anybody. They never got their hands on people sometimes. So they're going to have some extra penalties. But I think as a Jackson State fan, you'll take a handful of extra penalties for better execution throughout the game. I think a lot of their penalties just come from them being too aggressive sometimes. And I'll take a handful of penalties every once in a while over than an offensive line like last year that isn't aggressive, that doesn't get penalized a lot, but don't block a soul, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I just wanted to get your take because I know, what I mean, that's your field, that's your position, man. But appreciate you answering my question, man. Good show.
Appreciate you, man.
All right.
Let's see. We can catch up to these. To everyone, a championship game is absolutely stupid on the FCS level. You don't need a championship game to determine who the best team is. JSU is going to sweep the SWAC at this point. Yeah, I mean, especially when you're going to have rematch. I mean, because here's the problem, Mike, is the problem becomes when let's say Jackson goes in there, and this is just me, hypothetical here. If Jackson goes into Alcorn and DeLorme and beats Alcorn State by 30, but by that time Alcorn's already clinched that division, is anyone going to care to watch the SWAC championship? That's the problem, man. It's like with the way with that game being the last week, it could be horrible because Jackson State fans will show up, but the national interest is not going to be there because I mean to lose by 30 in Lorman at home, you're going to go travel to Jackson now, and you're going to think you're going to go into the vet and anything's going to be different. I don't think so. Listen, I said that, Mr. Carey, Jackson will pack the vet, but I'm talking about national interest, like from people outside of Jackson. The interest is not going to be as high as it would if Alcorn was competitive in that first game. So the best case scenario for Jackson State in the SWAC, Alcorn needs to win the rest of their games, get to that game with 2 losses. Jackson and Alcorn play competitively that last week, and then they go into the conference championship, and a lot of people look at that as a potential huge game. So I'm going to be interested to see how it looks, but we'll see. Also, call in number 701-779-9585. Alcorn will still travel. They don't have anything better to do, but the national interest would be low. Yeah, that's all I was saying. The national interest would be low, in my opinion, if that happens. So the SWAC needs Alcorn to be competitive. Nah, my throat's a little sore, but I'm good, man. I'm good. I believe that they should have zoned block last year. I just don't think that offensive line was disciplined enough. To be honest, that's how I would put it. They could not move to the FBS. More enough revenue sources been through that. Yeah, I know. Listen, I've done everything I can on this topic. I've asked the question to the guy who makes the decisions. So I don't know how else to address that. I don't think the difference was very high, Mr. Carey, at all. Don't count. Oh, I'm not counting out PV at all. Do not worry, Brandon. Right now, PV is the second best team in that division, and that's how I feel about it.
Right now,
9717, you're live.
Hey, how you doing, Blue? First time calling.
What's good, man? Appreciate you calling in.
I was calling you first one to let you know that Deion Sanders will be not Buffalo, but Colorado's head coach. He was already in Colorado last week, and you heard it from me. Thank you for taking my call. My name is Eric from Wichita.
Appreciate you, man. Oh, man. So apparently we can add another rumor to the pot. Prime to Colorado, apparently. That's crazy. But let's see. Evan Henry's very aggressive. That's what I'm saying. Evan Henry, I think he sometimes he lets his emotions get the best of him, and he grabs and he pulls and he tries to be too aggressive and he gets the flag. And it comes in inopportune times, Joseph. But I'm taking that over what Tony Gray and some of those players last year were giving me all the time. Appreciate you tuning in, man. Let's see. Most of their penalties are due to holding. It's usually the same player. That's not a coaching issue. Hey, exactly. What FBS conference will they fit in? You're asking for that one, man. They gonna bring it to you. They gonna bring it to you on that one. Okay. This is what Jersey. I'll talk a little bit about this. Like I said earlier, with undersized players, Jordan Lewis and Isaiah Land are both undersized defensive ends or edge rushers. What happens is they explode onto the scene, and no one knows how to handle them throughout the year. And Jordan Lewis and Isaiah Land both went and won Buck Buchanan awards. What's happening now is, due to their size, double teams, chip blocking, and coaches are specifically scheming to get them out of the game. And so therefore they're not putting up the stats you're used to. And I've said this, it's really hard to replicate the production both of them had the year they won the Buck Buchanan. It's really hard to put together special years like that. That's what That's what made the Appalachian State guy who won it back-to-back years so special, and that's what made Eric Berry and Cole Kelly on for the Walter Payton so special, is they were able to continue to replicate that success year in and year out. But for Jordan Lewis and Isaiah Land, size is a major issue, and there's a very obvious ways as an offensive coordinator and offensive line coach to scheme against that, and that's all it is 32 and 31 on the scouting report are like must-haves to handle, and they're finding ways to scheme them out of the game, and you're seeing their stats suffer. So I think that's the best way to explain it, is that they're still both good players, that right now they just don't have an answer to the schemes and the ways that teams are throwing things their way to keep them out of and uninvolved in the game. I already got to that one. Said rumor indeed, Colorado. Oh no. Whoever just called in, you can call back in, man. I'll get to your call. I just saw it. SDSU has been ducking the FBS move for over 10 years. I would never take that Colorado job. The SWAC championship going up against the SEC, Mountain West, AAC is Sunbelt, 3:30 to 4 p.m. time slot. Mr. Carey, he already called in. He was the first caller, so you'll have to rewind. He called in earlier in the show for a good while. The Prime Minister of England. Colorado is a terrible choice unless you want to go 5-7 year round. Guys, I think, yeah, no, I think he was just being sarcastic. He was calling from Wichita, man. He was calling from Wichita. So Colorado, I think Colorado was just a joke, man. It was just a joke. He said Dion to Colorado State. Isaiah Land still manages to sack a game. And that's what the other thing you deal with when you have explosive years and win Buck Buchanan Awards and things is that people are always comparing you to your top year. And it's just impossible to put up 25.5 tackles for loss and lead the country in sacks year in and year out, man. It's really, really hard to do. And so I think people are comparing abnormal years or special years to every single year performances. And that's another big issue. And I don't know, Spence, I don't know if you mean SDSU or NDSU, but always want to stay where they can win. Never attempt that move to FBS. Mountain West, now a close state, is Wyoming. I believe conference is not a difference maker for them to make that jump. Land is a finesse player. I can see that. Jordan Lewis should switch to safety. I think he's been playing a little bit. I think he's been playing in space a little bit more, JSU Tiger, but I don't think he's made an official move to safety or anything like that, but I know they did move him back into space. 3751, you're live.
Hey, what's going on, Blue? This is Mike.
What's good, man?
Hey, I just want to ask like the SWAC about the SWAC. Sometimes it seems like the SWAC shouldn't really even be a part of the FCS because they do their own thing. The SWAC has a championship game, which no other team has in the FCS. The SWAC have these end-of-season classics. It's like they don't want to be a part of the FCS, yet they want to be in the polls. And it's kind of frustrating because sometimes I feel like they hold a MEAC back because we want to go to the playoffs. We want to do our own thing. We're like hooked at the hip with the SWAC just because they're HBCU, but their interest doesn't even vie with our interests. You know what I'm saying? It's like diametrically opposed. And I feel like as the MEAC, we have to get away from the SWAC because it's holding us back. You know, we want teams that want to become FCS powers, and we got to go to the Celebration Bowl. We got to wait till the SWAC play their 18th championship game. You know, it's like it's a big holdback and an impediment to the MEAC conference. And I was wondering if the SWAC wants to do their own thing, you know, have 8,000 classics and a championship game, why are they a part of the FCS? That's what I don't understand.
So there are a group of SWAC fans that I've talked to that don't think the SWAC's future is an FCS. They really do think that the SWAC should be FBS right now. I mean, and this is coming from people I've talked to that are HBCU grads from SWAC schools and that have been covering SWAC sports for years, way longer than I have. And I take what they say really seriously, and they really and truly think that the SWAC is FBS, you know, outside of the valleys and UAPBs and everything. So for them, you also got to remember a lot of the older SWAC fans, when the SWAC was participating in the playoffs, they really and truly did set up HBCUs to fail because there were no seating by locations. There were a lot of the rules and the things to give it a competitive advantage nowadays is it
Yeah,
was not there back in the day when the SWAC was competing. So a lot of the older people who are SWAC fans have a really, really sour taste in their mouth from the playoffs, and
but
they're looking
but
at it at yeah, extremely sour
the
taste.
sour taste comes in your mouth due to not winning. You know, I mean, the MEAC, we went to the playoffs. You had Buddy Pugh that took a good Appalachian State team down to the wire. You know, the MEAC has not a lot of wins, but have wins in the playoffs. You know, these are the breaks. You know, nothing in life is going to be absolutely perfect. You know, you just try to make adjustments to it. You know, the NCAA reimburses if you make the playoffs. The NCAA does reimburse you for your playoff run. You know, it's a misnomer to think like you don't get any money out of the playoffs. And this is what all schools go through, whether you're PWI or HBCU. It's just part of being an FCS team. But to think you're as a whole conference, the SWAC is moving up to FBS. Man, cocaine's a hell of a drug. Have a great night.
um, but I mean, to kind of build off what the caller was saying, also you can still call in. Now, I still got a little bit of time, so 701-779-9585, scrolling across the ticker down there. Okay, so I get what he was saying a little bit because there are some MEAC fans that so I think he's coming from the fan perspective. I know in the comments y'all put the MEAC really like helped jumpstart the jumpstart the Celebration Bowl, but some of the fans, especially North Carolina A&T fans, which you know they aren't in the MEAC anymore, were a little bit skeptical of the Celebration Bowl at first. And I think he's coming from that perspective in terms of, man, we would like to go win a national title, but I don't know if I don't know if the SWAC's holding the MEAC back because I don't think the SWAC held the MEAC at gunpoint and said that I don't think the SWAC held the MEAC at gunpoint and said you better sign the Celebration Bowl contract or else. So I get where he was trying to come from, but I don't know if it holds a lot of weight in terms of the overall grand scheme of things because the MEAC could back out the Celebration Bowl and keep it moving. So we'll see. But I still think I would like to see. Would like to say the one thing about the Celebration Bowl that I do like is the bowl game system, and they did a great job finding sponsors, payouts, things like that. And I wish the FCS outside of the playoffs would find a way to do that. And I know the Ivy League's off doing their own thing. I would like to see a bowl game with some of the Ivy League teams or some teams outside the conference later in the year in a neutral site. I would like to just see more bowl games and more money being available at the FCS level. But we've talked on this show countless of times about how the NCAA does not put their time, energy, or resources into FCS football. And I think if it did, man, the potential of FCS football could go through the roof because, man, we've talked about this. There's real talent at the FCS level. Let's just put it out there. If you look at some of the top stars in the NFL, they came from the FCS level. You look at countless Hall of Famers came from the FCS level. And one of the things with me is, you know, I started off my sports media thing covering FBS football, and now I'm really FCS focused. One of the things one of the FBS subscribers who now follows FCS football because of this show told me is that FCS almost serves as a flashback to what college football should be. And he said, with everything moving in the direction it is with FBS, with conference realignment, with the TV contracts, with all the money being thrown around NIL and things like that, he said the FCS really and truly reminds him of early 2000s college football, late 90s college football. And a lot of people are buying into the fact that FCS is a good product to watch. And I think if the proper resources, the proper people are put in positions of power, man, the FCS has a lot of selling power, really and truly. The problem is you don't have the brands that people are invested in like you do the top programs. And That's the biggest thing. So I'll just leave it at that. But I do think just more resources and everything like that need to be thrown into the FCS and really trying to help make these schools and promote them and putting some time and energy into making it profitable. Agreed here. FCS needs to add incentives by playing in the playoffs. I think the FCS playoffs need some advertising money to help make things better. Now, I will say I'm very interested to see, because there's been this big debate recently about the FCS National Championship and the Celebration Bowl TV comparisons, viewership, because there's only been 1 year where it's been on the same channel in the same year, and that was 2019 ABC. And the FCS National Championship drew like 1 million more people than the Celebration Bowl in 2019. This will be the first year since 2019 and only the second year that it's been on the same channel in the same year, because the FCS National Championship was on ABC in the spring, but there was no Celebration Bowl that year because the MEAC didn't play. I'm very, very interested to see the interest in those games now that they're both on ABC in the same year again. So we'll see how it is, and we'll see if ESPN put some time into advertising it, since it will be on ABC this year. Let the FBS be where they are. Things are chaotic. The FCS is outplaying them in most cases nowadays. Teams leave FCS and go to FBS to play in bowl games. We're just going to kill the bowl games we have. Make that make sense. No, I don't think there's a purse for winning, Drizzy, if I'm not mistaken. What team in the MEAC is set to play and win against Alabama, Florida? I don't think anybody in the MEAC is set to play that. I don't think anyone in the SWAC is set to play any of those teams either. There's not many I don't think there's any FCS teams that are set to play those top SEC teams. FCS playoffs need to let Prime run it. Oh, man. Let's see. The NCAA can take some of that FBS playoffs TV money and give it to the FCS playoff system. And there's enough money to go around. There's plenty of money to go around. What's up, man? What's up, 3-5? Let's see. Those FCS administrations work together. If they do, why doesn't FBS administration give they give a bunch of money to like the Group of Five conferences, which I don't get. They give a bunch of money. I think the Sun Belt gets a few million. So I don't know. I don't know, Jersey. It's a major question mark, to say the least. Another rumor. I don't know what rumor he's talking about. Eastern Washington is playing Florida this weekend. Who is your team playing? If your complaints about money and you really think they belong in the FCS and the FBS, as long as we're talking about conferences, we good. Jackson State can do great in the CUSA. There's a whole list of FCS programs that I think, depending on what conference, can absolutely compete at the FBS level. That's never been a question for me.
Quarterback play going with
2388. You're live.
Double T. What's going on, Blue?
What's good, man?
Hey, so as far as the FCS getting more money, how would they schedule to show all these games, like the media? If you got FBS with all these teams and you're showing all them games, how you going to show FCS too at the same time? Which channel's going to pick them up?
I think when you look at the semifinals and the quarterfinals, they've done a really, really good job of putting the big games on Friday night. If you remember last year, North Dakota State and James Madison played on that Friday night, where I think they were only going up against like a CUSA game or a MAC game. So I think spreading out what night the games are played would really help, and making and placing them strategically where they're not going up against, an Alabama versus Georgia, and Ohio State versus Wisconsin or something like that. There's enough flexibility. There's enough networks, and you got to look at when the FCS playoffs are going on. The FBS season's winding down. If you can fit a majority of the playoffs in between the end of the season and the start of bowl season, there's a whole lot of opportunities to get on TV where people are, outside of Sunday with the NFL, there's plenty of opportunities to get in. And really and truly, I think a lot of people, if you advertise correctly and sell the programs, there are a lot more. There could be a lot more interest in a North Dakota State versus Montana State than a damn Northern Illinois versus Bowling Green.
I agree with the playoffs, but I mean with the regular season though. You know, the FCS is not going to get the revenue FCS to get because they can't air them during the regular season.
Yeah, that's
You
the
can't
issue.
air both. You know,
Um,
it's too many schools to air at the same time.
Yeah, I mean
You know what I'm saying?
that's the biggest question mark because the ESPNs, the ABCs during the regular season aren't going to aren't going to air Jackson State versus Valley over any Power Five game. The where they got to fit in, and this is where the Big Sky got lucky. Being on the West Coast, they're more likely to get their games flexed to ESPN2, ESPNU, and etc. because those games kick off so late. So there's more
Yeah, that's
opportunities on that late schedule. Just like Eastern Washington, Montana, you can flex that at 9:30 at night because there's really nothing else going on that are huge outside of maybe the one Pac-12 game. But the problem with the SoCon, SWAC, OVC, MEAC teams is how are you going to flex a 2:30 game when CBS has the SEC, ESPN has a Power 5 game, ESPN2 has a Power 5 game, NBC has Notre Dame, Fox has the Big 10. There's just nowhere to put it in the middle of the day, so it gets crowded during the regular season.
exactly. One other thing, it's slipping my mind. Also, these people talk about the playoffs not making money and stuff. Also, a lot of SWAC fans miss a lot of these top conferences. They make a lot of money during the season. They make money that'll dwarf what SWAC teams make during the season. Like CAA, I think they got 5 teams in the top 20 top revenue grossing teams. So when it comes to the playoffs, they already made so much money during the season. So, and the playoffs reimburse, give you expenses back, but it's nothing once you'd have made, like what Eastern Washington made like $1.3 million in like 2 games this year. Oh, and that's 2 out of conference games this year. So playing the playoffs is nothing in them. They already made a whole bunch of money during the season, And what you were saying about Missouri, was Mississippi Valley State about? I got a question for you. What do you think? This is what I was saying, comparing Mississippi Valley to Davidson and Warford and stuff like that. Since both of them are small schools, I was saying they need to co-op with them because to see how they are successful with a small school and, with everything, with their recruiting and everything. Davidson got no scholarship players. So Mississippi State got scholarship players. So, Davidson, VMI, you were saying like run the wing T and stuff like that. Like they just, what do you think about them just co-oping with a school that's similar to you so you can start to be successful?
I don't think you can co-op, especially with the distance. I mean, how do you?
No, I mean not co-op. I mean cooperate. And we gotta be co-op like that. Just get ideas and structure and stuff.
I mean, I just don't. I don't know how that would. I would have to see the plan before I could really comment on it because it would be tough to execute. I mean, I think for Valley though, you have the athletes. I mean, listen, you're recruiting a talent-rich area, and even if you're getting possibly a 3-star here or there and working out the transfer portal, you have athletes. You look at they got a Ja'Cory Rankin, you got a Ronnie Thomas, the secondary player. I'm blanking on his name. He's pretty good too. You have a lot of talent. You just have to put them in a scheme that works, and I just don't think what Valley's doing is working. So for me.
That means the coach then.
Man, but I mean, Dancy's a accomplished coach. I mean, he just got invited to coach for the Jaguars. So I don't think he's a bad coach. It's just, let me ask you, is there realistically a coach in the SWAC right now that would be successful at Valley? I don't think there is.
What do you think is the problem then?
I mean, money, resources. I mean, man, they barely have a field. And they just don't have any. I mean, if Jackson State's recruiting budget is $15K, I would not be shocked if Valley was less than half of that. It's just impossible to succeed in. You have zero resources. You're your in-state rival now is a powerhouse with Deion Sanders. You still got to compete with Ole Miss and Mississippi State in the state. You still are getting out recruited by Southern and Louisiana. I mean, the way it was told to me by a guy who was recruited by Valley, played in the SWAC, said that the same way people, claim North Dakota State is masquerading as an FCS team and they're really an FBS team. He told me
Correct.
with the resources, budget, and some of the behind-the-scenes stuffs at Valley, they're a D2 school masquerading as an FCS school, and the only reason they're here is because of the history of the program, and they can't leave because they're so important to SWAC history.
They look worse than Virginia Lynchburg. Virginia Lynchburg is what, like D2 or something? They got like 750 students, and Valley looks worse than them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Delta State smacked them around for 60 minutes. It's just, I just don't know how you can be successful when you don't have the resources. It's just impossible.
Okay. All right. Good stuff, dude.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Thank you for calling in. The caller who was on hold, you can call back in. Definitely call back in. I'll probably make you my last caller. But if you want to call in real quick, 701-779-9585. Yeah, Valley's not going, but man, I think there's got to be some changes if anybody wants to be successful coaching Valley. Let's hope the new NCAA championship TV deal brings more money. ESPN paid $34 million a year for 29 sports, including women's March Madness, softball, and FCS playoffs. Black colleges and FBS may join them to form their own national NCAA type organization. You're supposed to be your brother's keeper. If Valley is in disarray, the commissioner is supposed to infuse money. Well, I know Coach Green talked about the payouts for the SWAC were the largest it's been in a few years now. It also comes down to state funding, MEAC Mike. The state funding, I mean, is as underfunded as a lot of these schools are. Valley is getting a large, an extremely short end of the stick. So there's just a lot of infrastructure issues with Valley, man. And so I'm wishing Coach Dancy the best, man, because I really do think that Coach Dancy's a good coach, and I was really excited to hear he got chosen to coach down there and coach in training camp with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I'm really hoping that he can get it turned around, because I do think he's a good coach, and I really am hoping that Valley doesn't try to go a different direction, because I don't know how they're going to hire up from what they got with him. The reason why Florida wants to play Big Sky teams is because half of their coaches from there. All right, we got Coach Green part 2 tonight. Coach Green, you're live again, man. What's up?
Hey, what's up? Hey, I wanted to speak on the Valley situation. I think everybody's like jumping the gun right now because they did bring in a new AD who's was Ashley Robinson right-hand man. So there's a chance a lot of things could change. And then, and there was a lot going on at Valley, with the old AD and what she was doing. So that's why she's not there no more. So this new guy, McLean, I think his name is, he's the new AD. So it will be some changes happening. So everybody need to, hold up, be patient, see what the new AD do. Because he got big plans. Because he talked about his big plans at the press conference, what he going to be doing for Valley. So let's see what happens. And then, plus with that secondary mirrors right there, that's even more money that SWAC would be getting. Because like I told you earlier, this was the highest payout that SWAC had this past season.
Well, do you know what the payout was to each school last season?
That's the only thing I don't know. But I know, I think he talked about it. He talked about on media day what it was. But I forgot what he exactly said. But I know he said the highest was 3.3 million was the highest that one of the schools got.
This is tough, man. I mean, listen, we've talked about this a million ways, and I think Mr. Campbell made a good point. I think it was on Scotty's show. He was like, man, every conference has that one like bottom feeder school, and I think that right now that's just Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and that's true. And that's the thing that shocked me. Everybody, dumping on Valley, but if you go through each conference, like the Big Sky, what's the bottom feeder in the Big Sky?
I mean, what, Southern Utah or someone like that?
And the CAA, who's the bottom feeder there?
Hampton right now.
Well, before Hampton joined.
I mean, there's been a few. I mean, this year I'm trying to think who is the worst team in the CAA outside of Hampton right now. I mean, maybe Towson, maybe. I mean, they're not very good, I would say. Who's the last in the standings right now? So right now the bottom is Stony Brook. We'll go with Stony Brook. They're 0-3, 0-2 in conference.
Matter of fact, have Stony Brook football team been good?
Marginally, but I don't think they've ever competed for anything huge.
Yeah, so that's why nobody should be, just because they've been losing. Like you said, one of the things you said, they have the athletes there. They do. They have the athletes. Just
I think
the biggest thing,
really,
the biggest position is quarterback to me.
Yeah. I would say this. I want to tell people, do not count Jamari Jones out just because of how he performed against Jackson State. Because he's not going to see a defense like that. He's not going to play in an environment like that. I still think Jamari Jones is a good quarterback, and I do think he has some potential, especially with how he played in the second half against Delta State. I want to see Valley play someone other than Jackson State because let's just be honest, they were overmatched across the board. I don't think that's a good measuring stick for Jones in his first ever start for Valley. So I want to let people know that that's not a great measuring stick
at all. Because when I was watching that game, he did some good things. And when I watched the Delta State game, that what made me mad at Dancer right there. I'm like, what is the reason you stuck with Janani Eason? I need a good reason why he stuck with him, because he was bragging about bringing in the number one JUCO quarterback. So how did Janani Eason get a chance to be that quarterback? Because the same problems he was given all the years he was there is the same problem he gave this year.
So what I was told, based on also Dancy's press conferences, is Jamari just wasn't performing well in practice. And I think, I talked a little bit about that with D Davis when all the reports came out about him not looking great in fall camp. Sometimes when you're a gamer and you're an athlete at quarterback, that doesn't transfer into practice very well, because you got the red jersey on, can't be touched. There's no opportunities for broken plays. Everything's very scripted. And guys like D Davis, Jamari Jones doesn't perform well in that type of environment. So I always say, if you have a gamer at quarterback, you got to put them in game situations when the pressure's on, when they're at their best. And I think that's what kept Jamari Jones off the field, is that the other guys were outperforming him in practice, but in a game situation, he's more prepared to handle the stress and everything like that.
Well, a perfect example you just made was Davis. Everybody was talking about how bad he was in practice, but when the game happened, everybody was shocked. So that shows you he was a gamer, and I'm so.
Go ahead.
What you about to say?
Oh no, go ahead, man. Finish your thought.
But yeah, he did like, matter of fact, the game against PV, he played well, but them last two turnovers hurt them.
They did.
I just want Valley.
The biggest reason I want Valley to get better QB play is because I want to see what Caleb Johnson really has, man. I really do think that guy can find somewhere at the next level, whether it's the NFL, USFL. He's got a lot of talent. The problem is they don't have anyone to throw the ball, so people are putting nine guys in the box consistently, and forcing Valley to pass. If they can just have an average passing attack, I think Caleb Johnson could have a huge year at running back. And that's the biggest frustration for me, is that he's too good to be stuck in a situation that is not it's not conducive for him to be his best version.
I would like to have see what would have happened if Jamari Jones would have played against the first team Valley played. I would love to see what would have happened.
They had a chance. Excuse me. They had a chance to win that game. I think they potentially could have knocked off Tarleton if he would have started that game.
Yeah, because Easton ain't that. No great athlete, but he's not that strong arm. I think that's one of the things too, because he got such a strong arm. You know, Easton got a cannon for an arm. So So how far now? This is my last question. I'm done. How far up do you think North Carolina Central will be going up in the rankings?
I had them at 16. I've had them higher than all the other voters. I think they were 25 last week. I would say probably somewhere around 21, 22, possibly.
Oh, and then this is the last one for real, because I just thought about this because I wanted to ask you this earlier. PV when the rest of their games, and then before they play Lamar, and then beat Lamar. What do that do for them?
Probably nothing. Lamar I don't think Lamar's won a game this year. Let me double check, but they just lost to Northwestern State. Yeah, they're 0-4. They've lost to Abilene Christian, SMU, Northern Colorado, and Northwestern State. And before they play PV, they still have to go play Incarnate Word on the road. So they're sitting at minimum 1-5, possibly 0-6 before that game. Zero chance that game does anything for PV's resume.
Yeah, no, but never mind. They had a chance to beat ACU, so they should have beat them.
Agreed. That was a game that they had to have. But I appreciate you, Coach Green.
Yeah. Oh, no problem.
All right, man. I'm shutting down the call lines now. I'll get to y'all's comments, man. Then I'm out of here, man. We are at hour 2 already. Valley has a bye week this week, and then they go and play FAMU. Try again. They play FAMU on the road October 1st. Is their next game. So that will be the next one for Valley. Or is it? Yeah. So Valley. Spence, I don't know if you're talking to me, someone in the chat, but I don't know what that's for. I must have missed something with Spence, man. He's been in here upset at you guys. If Campbell beats NCCU this weekend, what's your perspective? I would be shocked. I'll put that up there. I haven't released my predictions yet or anything, but NCCU should be the favorite coming into this one. It is going to be a tough game to play on the road, but NCCU has the talent to win that game. But I don't know if it plays a huge role, man, because it depends on how they beat NCCU. If they go out there, if Campbell beats NCCU by double digits, then man, that Jackson State game receives a lot more hype. But I think NCCU is rolling right now, and I have some questions about just the overall where Campbell's sitting right now. Because if they come out and lose this weekend, man, that record is going to be looking really rough for the talent that they brought in this past season. So I don't right now. I would not pick Campbell to beat Jackson State, and I don't know if a win over NCCU would make me pick them. I think it will make me feel more comfortable about that being a competitive game. But I don't know. I don't know how much I would put into it. I would have to see them really, really go out there and dominate NCCU at home this weekend. I'm really, really excited to be able to see that game in person this weekend, Trey. Let's see. There was another question. Let's see. Everything there grossly underfunded. He said Valley 6, FAMU 3. Yeah, definitely like thoughts and prayers are with the Alcorn wide receiver. Apparently his mother and sister after the game were traveling. I don't remember where they were traveling to, but I believe they passed away in a car wreck on the way back from the game. So if you know the player or know anyone connected to the family, man, definitely let them know that everyone has them in their thoughts and prayers, man. I'm hoping he is okay, and I know that that's got to be a tough situation, man. I hate to hear stories like that, but um, yeah, man, I saw something on social media earlier about that. I don't know any other details though, so I don't want to speak on anything that happened. But I just heard something happen in terms of a car wreck potentially, and both of them passing away, man. So I'm hoping he and, I just hate that, man. Let's see, I don't know why so many people thinking JSU will lose to Campbell. I can't see it. I don't see it right now. Is a game between JSU and NDSU too big to be a home and home? I mean, if you're talking like 2-3 years down the line when it possibly could happen, then yeah, I think it would need to be in a big neutral site. But we'll see, man. I don't see that game happening up at least until 2025 at the earliest. I don't see a Valley one down in Bragg, but if it's a Valley, yeah, it's in Bragg this year. It's in Bragg. Tyler Smith. Okay, Tyler Smith is the wide receiver. How do you think JSU was stacking? It would depend on the bracket, Calvin. I mean, I could see, I really and truly could see Jackson State making a run to about the quarterfinals or so. But then, you know, if they had to go up there and travel to one of those if they had to go play Montana or Montana State in that weather, I just don't know how they would fare. So I would say they're probably a quarterfinals team right now. And if they got a favorable matchup, maybe they can make a run further. But I think quarterfinals is about where I would place Jackson State if they were in the FCS playoffs this year without seeing, you know, an official bracket. When you come to the vet, don't know yet. Listen, man. Listen, this is my and this is my job now. So, you know, I work for On3 in this. So I'm really trying to build up my resume moving forward in terms of videography, covering games, trying to be as credentialed as possible to as many games. And with Jackson State's SID, to say the least, not really respecting, you know, the platform that I've built and the website and things like that, and you know, myself being a voter and things like that. I mean, listen, I've left the dude voicemails, I've left the dude emails. Saw him at the Southern Heritage Classic, and he just kind of blew me off. So I don't know if I'm coming to the vet this year. We'll see, man. Listen, this is my livelihood. So if I can go to a game and get credentialed and covered it, produce content for you guys, I'd rather do that than just go to a game where the guy's not even going to give me the time of day. So I'll just put it like that. As professional as an answer as I can give you there, man. I'm from the Mississippi Delta, Lee Valley alone. This is the first year Valley offers 60+ scholarships. That is crazy, man. That's crazy. Your thoughts on FAMU versus Alabama A&M? I think it was an important win for for FAMU, to say the least, man. This was a big one because I think if FAMU loses this game, the question marks surrounding the potential of this team are deafening, because I think FAMU losing a home game would be a lot more detrimental than A&M losing this road game like they did. But I thought they played well, man, especially when they got the offense going. The running back position is tough, though, man, because they've been dealing with a lot of injuries. Terrell Jennings looked much improved coming off that injury. I think he had 50 yards rushing and a touchdown. Musa looked efficient, 343, 3 touchdowns. The one thing I want to see, man, I just want to see the playmakers on that defense step up. I mean, Land had a sack and 2 tackles for loss. I believe it was Morgan was the corner that got the pick, but Isaiah Major is everything that I thought he was going to be and more. 14 tackles, had a tackle for loss, and I thought FAMU played well. I think the Alabama A&M defense does look improved, but it's just tough to win when you don't have quarterback play, man. They only threw for 200 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, and were sacked 4 times. They just still have major holes in their roster. So Alabama A&M, I think they still have multiple spots that they have to figure out before they can really compete with the top of the SWAC and get a big win on the road at FAMU. But I thought this was a big win for Whitley Simmons and FAMU. Man, it happens. Listen, I get it. He he went to he listen, he thought he had it and he wanted to win the game, man. Because you even if let's just say he goes out at the one Aaron, anything can happen after that. I think he was just trying to win the game, and I feel bad for him. But as an Auburn guy, I love that he fumbled. I don't know how I feel about us winning this weekend, but listen, he was just trying to make a play, and it's unfortunate that the ball slipped out of his hands. Campbell has a talent that will be better as the season goes along. Can you confirm? I don't. Okay, so I don't know if they. This is the first I've heard of this. EA. I cannot confirm if Grambling took a bus to Daytona. I cannot confirm anything. If there's a playoff game there, I will definitely ride back down to Hammond. There is a chance I do come back down though. I'll make that announcement. There's a few weeks that I have open. So the 8th, the week after this upcoming weekend, I have something that I can't travel. But then every other weekend throughout the year, I'm looking to travel to a game. So Hammond is back on my list, man. I'm gonna try to make it to as many different stadiums as I can. But Hammond's definitely one that I'll look at to return. If I don't come this year, man, I will definitely be back next year because that is a short drive, and I had a blast coming down there. I'll hold. I don't know right now, Calvin. I'll get back to you on that. But if I had to say right now, I would say Hugh Freeze over the other two, and just right now, I'll say Hugh. Hey, man, it's all good. Hey, um, listen. Eventually, all the SIDs are going to have to respect what we're building here, man, and it's all due to y'all tuning in and everything. So appreciate that, man. Eventually, we're going to be too credentialed, voting in too many stuff, and being a voice in the FCS space where all the SIDs are going to respond. So no worries about that at all. I understand though. I get it that they got an issue with me. That's cool with me. The issue with JSU in the playoffs will be defending the run game. Blue, run for that blue. I'll get you a ticket. Hey, man, I appreciate you. What about Jalen Jones? How did he play? For Bethune, I don't remember his stat line, to be honest with you, off the top of my head. I can pull it up real quick for you though. I don't think he played bad though. That was a big win for them. Let me just say that I didn't talk about the Grambling State Bethune game, but that was an important game. But yeah, Jalen went 13 for 18, 137, 2 touchdowns, and he had a handful of yards rushing. The problem with Grambling again is quarterback play, man. Hawkins is too inconsistent. 22 for 43, 287, 2 picks, had 1 touchdown, and on top of that, they just cannot stay healthy at running back, man. Dedrick Talbert was the leading rusher for them. They have to get healthy at running back and wide receiver, man. They put Faze on him for one game. He catches a touchdown and takes him out. Now, I do want to say Hugh Bird for Bethune-Cookman at running back is legit. 162, over 8.5 yards per carry. And Kamari Everett finally shows up, 5 catches and a touchdown. Grambling just has a bunch of issues. They're gonna have to figure it out. I don't blame Grambling right now for taking the G, or yeah, rambling. I can't say the G. They haven't earned that, but Rambling has a lot of issues right this second. Let me pull back up. I see thoughts on North Carolina A&T. So I talked about that game a little bit earlier. I talked about how South Carolina State cannot allow Corey Fields to have to throw 50 times in a game. I thought the run defense was lackluster, and they weren't able to put pressure on the quarterback. While A&T finally committed to what they had to do. They had to run the ball and open up things for the quarterback downfield, and they did that for Fowler. And you saw how consistent and accurate he played. I thought this was a huge, huge must win for A&T, and this was a big one. But South Carolina State, I have some major question marks. And right now, I do not think they're matching up very well against NCCU in that game coming up in a few weeks. Southern Illinois is a sleeper. They got something weird going on. Man, I don't know. I've never seen a team play so bad in the first 2 games and then so good the next 2 weeks, Dave. I don't know how that happened. Isaiah Land draft stock. Right now, Isaiah Land isn't getting drafted, in my opinion. If he does, it'll be 6th, 7th round. His draft stock has plummeted this year, in my opinion. What's up, SWAC in the Full, man? Y'all make sure to go subscribe to SWAC in the Full if you're not. My guy's doing an amazing job over there. FAMU's defense is suffering. We lost a coach just before the start of the season. I agree with that. Let's see. Campbell is young. FAMU is not losing another SWAC game, no matter what non-SWAC knowing people say lames. Tell him, Mr. Campbell. Tell him how it is. The Ramblin' State Tigers. Improved doesn't say much for A&M's defense. FAMU was playing just as bad as they have all season in the first quarter. They turned it around, though. They I'll say that, okay, I get what you mean. It was the defense was so bad that it was not hard to improve, and FAMU didn't start out well. But my main thing is when things got away from them against Jackson State, they were not able to correct it. And this game, they really turned the page late in the second, and especially in the second half. In my opinion, that means more than just starting slow, but they do need to start faster and coming up in the next few games. Blue come to Jackson will make a right man. Listen, I'll put Jackson on my schedule again. Definitely, we'll definitely put them on my schedule. Will JSU crack the top 5? No, Chris, I don't think. I think Jackson State's ceiling is probably that 6-7 range, just because with the top 5 you start splitting hairs, and Jackson State cannot be ranked top 5 without playing a ranked opponent all season long. So I don't see them cracking into the number 5 spot. Johnson, but listen, that's all you had to be. I'm telling people all the time, listen, in most offenses outside of the air raid attack where you need your quarterback to go out there and throw 50 times like a Tim DeMorat or someone like that, or a Will Rogers at Mississippi State, you don't have to always be the game winner. Manage the game, be efficient, don't turn the ball over, and when you need to make a play, make it. It's simple, man. That's all you have to do as a quarterback. I think some people overthink what you need from a quarterback to be a successful team. I thought Jalen Jones played a solid game. Let's see. We'll get past 5. Hugh Freeze will be the next coach at Auburn. Definitely like the stream, man. Appreciate y'all. What'd you say about the Alcorn game? All I said is Howard is a monster. That's all needed to be said. If Jarvion Howard continues to play like this, he is going to make a run at he's already pulled away for the SWAC rushing lead. He came into this game leading the SWAC in rushing and had damn near 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's going to make a run at potentially having a chance to lead the FCS in rushing. And right now, I love Dallas Daniels. Jarvion Howard is going to make a serious run at newcomer of the year for the SWAC. And I hate it for Nico Duffy, but he just lost his spot. Howard is the main guy, RB1 for Alcorn State, and as talented as Duffy is, man, he just doesn't have that electricity that Howard is bringing to the running back spot. And Leatherwood's a great backup too, but I think it's Howard's job moving forward. Delta State had more D1 transfers from the Power 5 school than most of the SWAC. Google Clemson. JSU ruined Isaiah just like they did at Kiel. Landhelm has not looked good. Blue, check in with you. Hey, man, make sure to go subscribe to No Slack in the SWAC podcast. That's a mouthful, man. Good Lord, that's a mouthful. But, man, make sure to go subscribe. Great job over there, too, man. Appreciate you tuning in. Alcorn and JSU will play twice for sure. FAMU will go 9-2. Yeah, man. I talked about them a little bit earlier. I've been trying to break down, but yeah, I talked a little bit about them. I talked about Alcorn's running game and just how efficient they looked, and then A&M and FAMU I broke down a few times. But yeah, so it's in the episode too. A&M won't correct it this year either. Scooter Bowl 2.0 is going to be lit. I'll be at that game. I cannot wait to be at that game. Coming to the hometown too. Pink Scooter Gang going to be in the building. I hope they bring the scooter. Okay, hear me out. Okay, I don't care if they don't publicize they bring the scooter. If you're an Alabama A&M coach, fan, or whatever, you have to bring the scooter just based on the fact that you might pull the upset. And if you can upset Jackson State in late November and put that scooter in the field with like a return to sender label, you have to do it. Don't tell anyone you bring it just in case you lose. If A&M can pull off the upset, you have to have the scooter to send back to Dion. It is a must. It is a must to have that happen. Hey, top 6 or 7 is good for a team. Exactly, man. Hey, that's a great ceiling. Well, if you go to North Dakota, bring up. Hey, man, I'm trying to avoid going to any northern games after like the end of October. That running back for Alcorn is good. I'm telling you, he's different. They nailed that transfer. JSU being ranked as pointless. Hey, you got to rank, man. Bobby, I don't know if you're a JSU fan or not. If I didn't have Jackson State ranked, I mean, this chat would go berserk. And I do think right now, like I said earlier, Jack State was in the playoffs. They get to the quarterfinals, and I do think when you look at some head-to-head matchups, they could compete with those teams in that range. Now, I don't know about the 1 through 6, but anyone around them, I think they could compete with. So I'm going to rank them. I get it; it's pointless they don't go to the playoffs, but I do think Jack State's a top 10 team in the country. Yeah, I think Alcorn beats. I think Alcorn beats PV, and Alcorn and Jackson State do play twice as of right now. Of all the teams in the SWAC West, I think Alcorn. Miss Angie, Texas Southern has had a big win. They had a big win, but the problem, Miss Angie, is that now PV is going to have to lose 2 conference games for you guys to have the leg up, and you guys cannot lose one, because if you guys have the same conference record as PV, they win the tiebreaker. So the fact that you guys already lost to PV really hurt y'all's chances to win the division. So you're going to need chaos to ensue, and Texas Southern's going to have to go on a real run. Right now, I would put Texas Southern in that 3 spot. It'd be Alcorn, PV, and Texas Southern. But if PV drops a handful of games and Texas Southern can get some big wins, you guys can compete. But the problem right now is that you guys already have an in-division loss, and that puts you guys behind the 8 ball, especially with it being in week 1. It's the same issue that FAMU ran into last season. Oh, I got you, man. If I come to Jackson, I know there's a bunch of you guys that that have told me to reach out. I definitely will. If JSU runs Wilkerson 25 times, he will become newcomer of the year. Now that's true. Aaron, who SoCon and Southland. I mean, right now you have to say Southeastern. Southeastern now has beat Incarnate Word. I think Southeastern probably escapes with the Southland Championship now that they've won that head-to-head. SoCon, I'm going to go with Mercer. I like Mercer winning the SoCon. I think right now they have a more explosive offense than Chattanooga, and I think they can put up some points and turn that one into a competitive game. So I'm going to go with Mercer winning the SoCon and Southeastern Louisiana winning the Southland. Bring the scooter. Yes, sir. Should never. He said, return to center. Okay. Got to bring the pink scooter to Mobile. Hey, I just had to say, Mike, listen, you got to do it just in case, because do you know how upsetting it would be if A&M pulled the upset you didn't have the scooter? Man, I would be upset. No, I'm not picking. Listen, I want to make sure I'm not picking A&M in that game, but I'm just saying it. You have to bring it just in case. A&M can't beat themselves in practice. No way they beaten the I love. Alabama State homecoming, W or L. Did Alabama State schedule Jackson for homecoming? Because that's probably an L. I'm not gonna lie, that's probably an L. Oh, I haven't watched that game. Is it really 10-5? Well, the Broncos getting the safety going in. Hey man, listen, Miss Angie, don't take my Andrew Body hoodie. I promise. Still a big fan, but I got to keep it real. SWAC championship is going to run through Mississippi again this year. To be honest, chances of Texas Southern beating Alcorn and Alcorn beating PV. Texas Southern is going to have to play a really good game. I don't know if that's games in Lorman, man. Hang on, I got to look up that game, because if it's in Lorman, that's going to be a tough game for Texas Southern to win. Let's see. Yeah, that game's in Lorman, and then they travel to PV. It's October 22nd. Again, is that Texas Southern game? I mean, it's possible, Calvin, but I still, right now, because of Howard and the run game for Alcorn, I give Alcorn a little bit of a chance to beat Texas Southern. I think that PV defense will offer some challenges. I'm really interested in that game, but if it's a tie for first, I don't know what the tiebreaker would be, because you would have Alcorn losing the tiebreaker to PV having the. Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't know what the next tiebreaker would be, Calvin, but that would be insane. Man, listen, I had some problems with my credentials. Sonic Boom, I apologize. I was definitely busy, but I'll definitely get with you when I get back to another Jackson State game. Let's see, Mercer. Man, I think Mercer's been really good this year, man. The offense has been electric with Ty James at wide receiver. The quarterback's been a lot better, and the defense has been extremely opportunistic, led by Lance Wise. I don't have any faith in Chattanooga's offense right now. They have a run game every once in a while, but if you stack the box, I don't know if their quarterback can go win you a game. So that's the reason why I'm picking Mercer over Chattanooga right now. I mean, Mercer's the number 12 team in my rankings right now. I don't know why they wouldn't have a chance to go win their conference right now. We shouldn't have underestimated PV. Based on what I've seen, Hezekiah, if really and truly, if they don't win the Big South this year, Sam Washington is gonna have to probably go. With how Campbell has struggled in some of the games we've seen them, Bryant been up and down, and none of the other teams should be able to win that conference. A&T needs to win. I think it's going to come down to them and Campbell, and both teams have major holes. A&T has to win this one though. If you're going to go into the CAA and play Delaware and some of those other teams, and Richmond ranked, William and Mary, Elon. I mean, it's going to be a gauntlet in the CAA. Villanova is just dropped out of the top 25 due to an upset to Monmouth, who came in, and Monmouth beat A&T last year too when they were in the Big South and won a conference title in the spring. If they don't win the Big South, the outlook on A&T moving forward is very bleak. And they need to go hire someone who has success in a conference like the CAA and has success getting teams to the playoffs, because I've really questioned what the outlook would be. SDSU was the biggest O-line. Bama State got JSU homecoming. Not a great not a great choice. No, I don't think they lost their playoff hopes. I mean, they're still probably going to be top 20 in the country, Michael. At worst, if SLU gets to auto bid, I think Incarnate Word with a win over Southern Illinois and an FBS win, I think Incarnate Word has done enough to I would say they would get an at-large bid right now. What's your opinion on McNeese? I just think McNeese is a few years away. When Gary Goff came in there, that team had a lot of holes. And I think Goff is a great coach, but there's still a lot of holes that he hasn't been able to fill yet. Give Gary Goff a hand, probably 2-3 more years, and then we'll look at McNeese. I just think that team is not what it was in the early 2000s. No, nobody from the SWAC's making it unless FAMU goes 9-2, and hopefully the bubble is not very crowded and FAMU can slide in there. But FAMU has to look impressive over these next few weeks for them to have a shot. But other than FAMU, no one from the SWAC's getting in. Dion said on the video board after the game that they got to beat a team down after the off week because they schedule us on homecoming. So yeah, we're gonna beat them bad. App State and JMU is the way you transition. Yeah, James Madison received votes in the AP poll this week. So Dion's going to try to put 60-70 for Alabama State. A&T has screwed themselves. Fire Sam Washington Odoms. Hampton's probably going to finish somewhere in the bottom 3 or 4 in the CAA right now. Calvin is where I would probably put them. But yeah, they found out what it was like going up against Delaware. They haven't released the spread yet, Chris. That'll probably come out next week. FCS lines usually don't come out until the week of, or like late in the week of. The Big South only has 4 games in 4 weeks as a conference. That conference is stronger than the MEAC. I don't think right now, I don't think the Big South is stronger than the MEAC. Personally, Rob, I know some people might disagree, but I think with North Carolina Central's showing out, I also think the fact that Morgan has won some out of conference games, there's both of those are probably around the same spot. But right now, I think the MEAC has looked stronger out of conference compared to the Big South. Let's see. Coach Prom is not leaving before 2025 or 2026. At Norfolk, I don't know off the top of my head, but I think he's losing. Norfolk looks terrible right now. Norfolk has looked atrocious this season. It's been really bad. But, man, I'm going to get out of here, man. But, listen, I appreciate y'all. Just to recap for all the new people, people who tuned in late, players of the week, Tim DeMoret, Fotis, can't pronounce that last name, Jarvion Howard were the 3 offensive player of the weeks. Woo Governor, Mike DiNucci, and Lance Wise, 3 defensive player of the weeks. Of course, the FCS, FBS upset Sac State 41-10 over Colorado State. Fordham gave it an effort, but didn't get Ohio. SLU, Hail Mary win over Incarnate Word. Austin P dominating EKU. Delaware running away from Hampton. Elon upsetting William and Mary. South Dakota State gets a big win. Montana escapes Eastern Washington. Valley falls to JSU. A&T, big win over South Carolina State. My top 25 can be found on the website. And man, I appreciate y'all tuning in. But listen, Coach's Corner coming up Tuesday. Also, live streams throughout the week. We'll have our FCS preview on Wednesday, roundtable on Thursday, and Friday. I might do a live stream from North Carolina. I'll be traveling to Campbell versus North Carolina Central. Check out the highlight tape from Southeastern Louisiana, Incarnate Word, filmed by your boy here. But listen, guys, up until next time, the Blue Bloods are out.